Awesome. Then I can
And
pull that channel up as well.
I'll pull up foul
And
play here, and I'll insert
this is so
um,
cool.
thumbnail. The thumbnail. Yeah,
Okay.
it is cool.
Yeah.
And I can do this on the fly, and they let you do it now.
Yep.
Whew.
Yeah, it doesn't there's no time lapsing or anything.
Um, Daniel's playlist. Upload thumbnail. Save. Boom. Done. Well, it's working. There it goes. It's done.
I'm chit-chatting away over here. My mic was muted. So, okay, so Jack's got it going over on foul play. And so I've had a couple more drop in. So I'll say hello to those folks that Alice is on my channel, I think, watching. And looks like we have JD over. Well, JD looks like JD's on both channels, so that's awesome. Oh, Inexplicable Susan's on both channels too.
Yep, I'm
So
on both channels. I just opened yours up as well. I got
yeah,
both of
and
them going.
I have them both open as well. So this is still I don't want to say an experiment, but just something we're playing around with. But I really do like it. I think it's pretty cool.
I love
So
it.
you know,
This
as I
step forward
get
in
better, what's that?
it's a step forward in technology. I love it.
Yeah, it is. It is. So I'll say hi to JD. Hello to Alice in wrongful conviction land. Alice, I hope you're feeling better today. I know it's been a rough couple of days for you, and I believe you just had another appointment today, if I'm not mistaken. So, whew. And Justine J, welcome and thank you for being here. I truly appreciate it. Okay, so Jack, I think there might be a couple of objections in here in this. I don't know if you've had a chance to go through it or not, but I
I
think
haven't,
there's
but
okay. I
I'll
think there's a couple of objections. So
okay. I'll grab the PDF and
okay,
so I'll have my own copy.
okay.
It's fine. You
Susan,
just
are
go
you
ahead.
going to read your own copy or do you want to read my copy?
I'll read mine.
Okay, good, perfect. And Dr. Silkman also has a copy. And I've just so everyone in the chats know, I've invited everybody on the panel to ask us to pause during the reading if they want to, or if they have something to comment or share or say, or a swear they need to get out or whatever.
We
um,
would never.
I
We would
know,
never.
right?
And Doc, when I met Doc, 4 years ago, it was all.
I
I'm
was a
kidding.
quiet boy, right? I was a quiet
That's
boy.
right. Me too. We just blame it on BB.
Yeah,
She's not poor BB's not here to
correct,
defend herself. So,
Yeah.
correct.
And
We
Jack,
blame
I
you.
call bullshit on yours. I can't speak for Dr. Silkman because I don't really know, but I know better than that for you, Jack.
you do.
So, okay, and while we're chit-chatting here, Maz has dropped in. Welcome, Maz. It's good to see you again. And I don't know why you're in the chat and not on the panel, but it's okay either way. And she objects. So, either way, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and have Susan start reading the part of Galen Gigger, and then I'll read the parts of the court if there are a couple of places. So I'll read that, and Jack, if he sees any objections from Scott Adams from Defense Counsel, he'll just pop in and read those for you. So let me get that loaded up here. And here we go. Guess I could leave it like that. We don't have to disappear just because the thing is on screen, right? We'll leave our gorgeous faces up there. Why not? Okay. So Susan, the court I think speaks first, so I'll go ahead and get started. And the court says we'll start on line 10. Mr.
Okay.
Gigger states final closing.
Thank you, Judge. Please, the court, counsel. Ladies and gentlemen, I am keenly aware that it's 4:20 in the afternoon and you've been going all day long. The state of Oklahoma has met its burden in this case, and reason and common sense and all the things that Mr. Adams just talked about should guide you to that conclusion. Mr. Adams is a fine attorney. He's a fine attorney. And he spent 2.5 hours getting you to focus on things other than his client. He's talked about how he ran to the rescue of another officer who was getting beaten. I don't remember any evidence about that. Maybe you do. But what Mr. Adams says is not the evidence. Quite frankly, what I said is not the evidence. You know what the evidence is. My intention is to not go through 2.5 hours and tell you everything that everyone said because you were here for that. But I do need to address a few things. First of all, let's talk about what you've observed for the last 6 weeks during this trial, 5.5. If I try to put in evidence of things that did not happen, there's going to be relevancy objections. Okay? So when we go into focus groups and other things that are out there that the police could have looked at, and control groups and all those things to say something did not happen, there's going to be relevancy and there's going to be a bench conference. And Mr. Adams is a fine attorney, and so he throws things out. But we're governed by rules. Let me give you another example. And I'm not going to point out all of them because you're intelligent people and you've been listening. To quote Mr. Adams, the most important part of Adair Gardner's case, most important part is the fact that she said Kim Davis said AVL to her during that initial interview in October. Remember that? That's what this lawyer said is the most important part of Adair Gardner. Well, ladies and gentlemen, Adair Gardner's interview was recorded. She admitted it. Detective Davis admitted. Counsel knows it was recorded, and he knows, as does Kim Davis, as she testified, that nowhere in that initial interview did she talk about AVL. Because, ladies and gentlemen, if she did, it would have been in evidence, and you would have heard about it. That's what your common sense says. Mr. Adams made fine arguments on behalf of his client, but understand what the evidence was and understand what the evidence is. Did she give Adair Gardner a ride back from Muskogee and talk to that 17-year-old young woman about her addictions, about the terrible home life she has, about the terrifying aspect of coming in and facing a lawyer who is as skilled as Scott Adams is on cross-examination to point out everything she's ever done that's wrong, everything she ever said that isn't exactly consistent with everything else that she might have said? The fact that she uses drugs, and at 17, he goes through a whole litany of drugs that are on that recording where Adair Gardner says, just like she testified, I didn't use them that day, but I've experimented with them. And you know what, Mr. Adams? It's something you wouldn't understand. Well, you know what? He's admitted he doesn't understand it. Because what he said to you as he started his opening arguments is, I don't understand people who don't have a state driver's license. I don't understand people who use drugs. I don't understand people who change their cell phone numbers. I don't understand those things. You know what? I would submit to you, although he may not have lived those things, yes, he does. Yes, he does. I've had bills I can't pay, and he can't understand Janie Liggins living with her daughter and her daughter's children that she gets assistance for, and the boyfriend that comes and goes, and her boyfriend who has to get up at 4 a.m. to go cook for people who work for Chesapeake Energy Corporation, and then he loses his job. And how dare she have the gall? How dare she and her daughter have the gall to not go pay traffic fines when they are hand to mouth, day to day, worrying about how they're going to exist? And we talked about every cost warrant in the world. Every one of these ladies who have all of these warrants outstanding because of the trouble they've got into. And he says it is beyond his ability to understand. That's good lawyering, but that's not common sense. That's not the real world. And that is not the life of Adara Gardner or Janie Liggins or Kayla Lyles and Shadarion Hill. And Mr. Adams tells you, and I quote, I don't care what happened to Shadarion Hill because of what she did, and neither should you, end quote. I quote him. That is exactly what that defendant right there was hoping you would think. I don't care about them, and neither should you, because they're a bunch of drug addicted, lying, convicted felons living on the East Side who've got warrants, and they don't even keep the same cell phone number, and they don't have jobs, and they walk around in high crime areas, and they're out on the streets at 2 a.m. And so for 2.5 hours, you've listened to him recant what he drug Adara Gardner through and Kayla Lyles through. And Janie Liggins talking about a drug arrest 28 years ago. Ms. McConnell was 4. That's what he wants you to look at. Because of lifestyles they've led, I don't care about them, and neither should you. Well, you know what? They're wrong. And I got news for you. If you think this officer is the finest police officer on the force and Scott Adams would be happy to have him come to his house, hold that for a minute because I want to talk to you about that. If you need help, if your wife was stopped by a police officer, if your daughter was stopped by a police officer, that's what he wants you to understand. And I understand his passion and I understand his argument. Let me tell you, this isn't about Scott Adams and this isn't about Galen Gigger. This is about 13 women who came in contact with someone who had authority over them. And it's about what this defendant did. So let's talk about what this defendant did. For 2.5 hours, you have heard about every prior conviction, and there are many. You've heard about every warrant. You've heard about every arrest. You've heard about every assault and battery on a police officer that Florine Mathis committed. You've heard about every false name they gave. You've heard about every fake Social Security they gave. You've heard about how they didn't give their correct date of birth. You've heard about their addictions. You've heard about the different kinds of drugs that they use. You've heard about what they said. There is no evidence of it, but they said every time this defendant would come up with some of them, not all of them, but I saw you walking away from a crack house. Okay, you haven't heard any evidence of that except that's what he would accuse them of. Mr. Adams says that people walk around on the East Side 2 a.m. in the morning smoking crack, and that's what the police have to deal with. Well, high crime areas, you've heard about that. Prostitution, you've heard about that. Rosetta Great said, that's exactly what I was doing. You've heard about the crack pipes he found on them, the probation violations they had, the lifestyles they were engaged in. And in all of those, here is the question I want you to ask yourself. 2.5 hours of listening to every victim we have, Mr. Adams reminding you what he pointed out. And let me ask you, of those 13 he came in contact with, how many arrests did this officer make? 0. How many reports did he write? 0. How many times did he call impound and say, listen, I know 1530 Northeast 15th is a crack house. My God, I was in there. You guys need to do some serious setting up on this. He wants to talk about surveillance. Get on over here. prostitution areas? How many times did he call Vice and say, hey, listen, I'm stopping women routinely right here at the corner of 15th and Jordan, and they're telling me they're prostitutes. You guys need to help me shut this down. Okay. And so what Mr. Adams would suggest, as he asked the detectives and Captain Boxwell and Captain Allen, is it unusual for an officer to smash a crack pipe and send them home? Well, it's not unusual. It's not unheard of, but what is unusual is if you're going to exercise some discretion and let them go, then you document it. You document it. And Mr. Adams may point out to you and want you to believe that part of being a police officer is not writing out reports and sharing with other officers what you found, and making reports when you find a sex offender living in a house, and maybe calling the sex offender registration unit. And you heard Lieutenant Munsey talking about those things. That's not the important part. The important part is, by God, he really wanted to be a police officer, and he reads Bible verses every day. All right, no arrests, not one report, not one field interview card. And when he transports them, he doesn't tell the dispatcher where he's going. He doesn't say, I'm with a prostitute who is high and I'm giving her a ride home. I want to make sure that she gets there safe. He doesn't say, I'm going to go into that house. He doesn't do those things. That's the kind of cop you guys want. That's the one that our ideal should be. In one breath, Mr. Adams says that Officer Holtzclaw was ill-equipped to work on the East Side. In the next breath, he says the Oklahoma City Police Department and Officer Holtzclaw is the greatest officer we've got. Well, Officer Holtzclaw is the only officer that you've heard about in this trial that's had these kind of problems. The other officers seem to be equipped well enough. You've heard some evidence about another officer who was engaging in voluntary intercourse with a prostitute over there. Yeah, we caught him too. Yep, we did. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm not going to go through everything, but I want to talk about some things with you. All right? He is extremely vigilant with everything he does. Extremely vigilant with everything he does, except paperwork, except telling dispatchers where he is, taking ladies home when he says he's going to take them home. Instead, he takes them to abandoned schools because that's what you would expect good officers to do. And by God, because the Oklahoma City Police Department didn't look at everybody Officer Holtzclaw ran over the course of his career and see if he drove them to that abandoned school when they all said nothing happened, well, then, ladies and gentlemen, find him not guilty. If that's what you think, if that's what you think good police work is, then find him not guilty, okay? Then do it. But you'll have to ignore reason. You'll have to ignore common sense, and you will have to ignore everything that is reasonable, which is the standard we're looking for. What is reasonable for this officer to have done, and what is reasonable for this officer to not have done? Is it vigilant? God, why wouldn't he know that word? To contact Shadarion Hill repeatedly on Facebook. That's what a vigilant officer does. The best officer, the one you want to contact to help your wife and your daughter or your family, is the one who calls her on his own cell phone. Is it the one who sends her text messages and says, I can't talk to you on Facebook, so call me? Okay. Is it vigilant for an officer who is the witness against the defendant to contact that defendant on Facebook because, to quote Mr. Adams, he's just such a caring, great police officer? And he knows she's struggling, even though I just told you that you shouldn't care about her or shouldn't care about what happens to her. It's okay for Officer Holtzclaw to care about what happens to her because he's just such a great guy. Excuse me 1 minute.
Oh, this guy is such a dick.
Imagine what a defense attorney, yeah, can't even say vigilant for fuck's sake.
Right.
Imagine what a defense attorney like Scott Adams would do if the state of Oklahoma tried to prosecute Shadarion Hill on that charge, where he's contacted her on Facebook, where he's sent her text messages, where he drives to her house in his personal car. And the cell phone records, instead of going after women who say nothing happened, these two detectives go and get records that show where he was and what tower he was hitting on when Shadarion Hill says he's coming, comes over, exposes himself, and wants to have sex with her. Ask yourself, is it ridiculous that Detective Gregory thinks he's hitting on Shadarion Hill? Is that incompetent, to quote Mr. Adams? If you think it is, send him home. What does your reason and common sense tell you? Can the state of Oklahoma successfully prosecute Shadarion Hill for the PCP she had in her system and on her because of what this police officer did? This greatest cop that's ever walked had the honor to wear the badge. The one you want responding to your house. What would happen if I took that case to trial? Ask yourself. Forget the sex. Just talk about the stuff you know happened. What would happen to that case? That's the officer I want coming to my house. You betcha. And then Mr. Adam does what defense lawyers have to do when their client is guilty. They attack the victims. They attack the investigation, and they attack the prosecutors. How many questions did you sit through insinuating that we have brought testimony, that we have taken care of warrants, that we have made promises? And how much evidence did you hear that that's happened? Absolutely none. And the infuriating part of it is they suggest that Shadarion Hill is getting a cakewalk when he knows, as a defense attorney, there's no way we could ever win that case in court because of him right there. What's the truth in this courtroom? What are the inferences you should be focusing on? Let's talk about 15th and Jordan a little bit. This defense attorney wants you to think what we should strive for in our community is officers who've helped themselves walk right into your homes. Well, he told the dispatcher that it's a crack house. So therefore, that makes it right to illegally enter a home as a police officer. That's what you want? That's what these officers are going to do? Just walk on in. And I remind you, there is not one arrest, not one police report, not one sign of evidence whatsoever that anyone was selling drugs out of that house. I don't know how Tabitha Barnes gets her money, okay? What do you think Florine Mathis charges to clean her house? Okay. Are there drug addicts? Yes. Do they smoke crack? Yes. But, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Adams says this. Again, I want to focus you on what reason and common sense is. He says, I don't care what Lieutenant Munsey says on the stand about how long a sex offender can live in a place or how long he can't live in a place. What does it matter? I quote him, I don't care about that. That's what Oklahoma County has come to. But you know who cares about it? I care. Because there are laws. And officers care because they know what the law is. And there are time periods that sex offenders can stay at a place and not break the law. Are there? Yes. Are they extremely limited? Yes. But should we care about them? Yes, because that's what the law is. And even sex offenders enjoy the protections of laws in our society. Now, what does that make sense about all? Now, what doesn't make sense about all that is how this vigilant, caring, community policing officer can come in contact with a registered sex offender in a house where there are children at a location that is too close to a school, and he knows it. And even if you believe him, which I would suggest you can believe that they're using drugs around there. Okay. In that environment, when he comes in contact with them, and even Mr. Adams has to admit it, he wants to say those things aren't important. But those things are the essence of police work. So when you learn he's a sex offender, what does this super cop do? Absolutely nothing. And so reason and common sense, ladies and gentlemen, has to kick in. I'm not suggesting it's sinister. I'm telling you, it's sinister because it has absolutely no reasonable basis.
Susan, can you pause for a second?
You bet.
I just want to say that Giger is tearing Daniel down because he didn't make a official report about this sex offender living in Tabitha Barnes's house. But neither did either of the investigators. Rocky Gregory investigated Tabitha Barnes's case, and he didn't report it. He did not go out of his way to, and he's a sex crimes detective.
Yeah,
And
he's
he
a
didn't-
detective.
Yeah,
Right.
and he didn't go out of his way to report it either. So, am I trying to split hairs here? Maybe, but damn it, if the laws apply to the cops on the street, they certainly apply to the cops in the office. And nobody else in the sex crimes unit did the same. Did it in either. Doesn't mean either one is right or wrong. I'm just saying it's really, really bad when you get up on your closing argument and what is that saying? Pot meet kettle, or because it's the same damn thing. None of them did it either.
That's right.
Where you get up on your high horse. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. Yep. Okay, that's what I wanted to say. Carry on.
Okay. You call the division that Lieutenant Munsey used to supervise, and you say, listen, I know there's rules about how long offenders can stay at different places, but I've caught this guy here on different occasions, and somebody needs to look into it. But the reason he didn't is because when someone went to look into it, they would have asked questions. And they would have said, Officer Holtzclaw, why didn't you make a report that night when you came in contact with Terry Williams, the registered sex offender? Why didn't you call the CAD system and say, hey, I went into that crack house that had the open door that justified me going in, and when I was there, you're not going to believe it, I found a sex offender. I need a case number because I need to type a report so that it can be transferred to a detective so they can find out what in the world is going on in this house. Focus on the evidence. One thing about evidence. 2.5 hours, Mr. Adams talked. There is not one witness in 6 weeks that said he did not commit the sex acts he is accused of. Not one.
Your Honor, may I approach?
Come up.
Your Honor, he's in a roundabout way. First of all, that's not true. That's not what the evidence is. My client denied it in the conversation. The videotape, that's an evidence. Secondly, he's commenting on the fact of my client's right to remain silent. Move for mistrial.
Make sure you don't try to shift the burden. No comment on his right to remain silent.
All right. Witness after witness came in, and witness after witness said, he did these things to me. and with a few discrepancies, all right? Yeah, Carla Johnson said it was on top of the clothes one time, and then she said it was under the clothes. That's the lie she came up with. If you're going to concoct a lie, that's a good one. If you want to accuse a police officer of something inappropriate, of all the things you could possibly do, say he touched my breast one time under the clothes and one time it was on top. That'll get him. I would suggest to you that if they said everything exactly the same every time, that might be evidence that they were coached.
Huh.
I might challenge you to try to tell the same story exactly the same way, even of something that you know happened to you at the time. But that's for you to decide. Let's keep going. If you think Detective Gregory either had an agenda or was incompetent based upon the fact that Carla Raines initially is talking about other things and saying, no, no one touched me, listen to the video again that you heard, the audio tape. It's all there. It's absolutely nothing to hide behind. You don't have all of the audio recorded interviews because of evidentiary rules, okay? You have the ones the judge allowed you to have. He said that you have the
Whoa,
evidence that
whoa,
is
whoa, whoa.
proper for you
Sorry.
to consider. Yeah. What?
Sorry. What
Yeah.
that is he? No, 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 no.
They
You
don't
can
have
do
it because they didn't record
they
a bunch of them, right?
exactly. They didn't record most of the interviews, not because it was the judge who didn't allow. Oh my God, I can't handle
What a
this fucking
dick.
liar. God. Okay, fine.
Were there any recorded interviews that the judge didn't allow? I can't imagine.
I guess I don't know. We'll have to see as we go back through all these accusers and the ones who did have interviews recorded, because I'm going to really be curious to see what gets allowed and what doesn't, because right now Galen Gigger, well, he's lied most of this way through all anyway, but right now this is a huge fucking lie. Oh, okay.
Wow.
Oh God, I can't
No
stop.
objection. There should be an objection there.
Yeah, we'll see.
But that one that Mr. Adams wants to suggest Detective Gregory is incompetent or has some type of agenda, because everyone certainly knows. It's certainly reasonable that these two police officers have nothing better than to build a horrific sexual abuse case against one of their own officers because they've got nothing else to do. That's the agenda that OCPD certainly tasked these two detectives to do. Let's take out one of our own, guys, because nothing would look better for OCPD than to have 100 people back here watching a case like this. Brilliant idea. Do that. That's the agenda I want these guys to have. Listen to the tape. If you think he was incompetent, I guess tell Carla Raines that it didn't happen to her. Florence Mathis. She has, to quote Mr. Adams, 5 prior A and B on a police officer, 9 prior convictions, 10 warrants, 19 aliases, 5 social security numbers, 4 different dates of birth. And what she came up with to take this guy out is this lie. He stopped me twice and nothing happened. But the other time he stopped me, he felt my breasts and a car came by and he left and I left. Boy, if anybody had an agenda to hate the police, it'd be her. She's already beat up on 5 of them. Brilliant. Ms. Mathis, Gibson, 19 alias lady. What? Brilliant on your part. Come up with that lie. What's common? What is reasonable in this case? What's common sense tell you? Rosetta Great. Willie Carter was all over the world on who moved in when, and who moved out where. And here's what I'm going to suggest about it. Mr. Adams is a fine criminal defense attorney.
Oh,
He
shut
is.
fucking pie hole.
But when your client's guilty, you have to do things that take the attention off of your client. Okay, these ladies, folks, they have problems. The intelligence level some of them have is limited, whether they've done it to themselves because of the drugs they've used or whether it's the gene pool they were dealing with to begin with. But you saw how the cross-examination went. They don't remember the date, but yet repeatedly and effectively by Mr. Adams, he would start every question almost with, well, on September 29th, when you talked to Detective Davis, you told her this, this, and this. I would suggest to you, you saw how they struggled with that because when they heard, quote unquote, on September 29th, they've been told to listen to the question and answer truthfully. If you don't understand the question, tell them you don't understand it. As soon as they got to September 29th, over and over and over and over, I would suggest to you their brain overloaded and they stopped. Quote, I don't know what the date was, end quote. And they didn't. That was the problem with a lot of them. There were some that were hostile, no doubt. I would suggest to you, Sarita, she called me stupid, okay? She was hostile to me too, okay? But ladies and gentlemen, it is the way she thinks, okay? Whether it's her own fault because she damaged her brain and her intellect because of drugs, or whether it's the way that she is, she's trying. And inconsistencies, you betcha. There's lots of them, except when it comes to what this officer did, because that limited capacity or not is engraved in their minds. Because that isn't supposed to happen. And they've had horrible things happen to them, things you never heard about. But use your reason and your common sense, but it shouldn't have happened. And on the one hand, Mr. Adams wants to spend 2.5 hours talking about every run-in they've had with the police. And on the other hand, he wants to criticize them because they don't run out and call the police when a police officer assaults them. I would suggest to you, what are they supposed to do? Because in their mind, I don't care about them because of what they've done, and neither should you. And they have been told that, and they have lived that, and they have experienced that. And that man stuck it in their mouths and in their vaginas. Oh, Jesus. And then they come into this room. Mr. Adams wants you to believe that it would be impossible for a police officer to have Regina Copeland bend into the back of his police car like this and stand behind her 4 minutes and 34 seconds and not stick his penis in her. That's 15 seconds. I would submit to you, he could have done it by then. Don't make the mistake of thinking this is about sex. This isn't about sex. This is about a man who was given authority over people, that he was supposed to ensure their legal rights are taken care of and their legal rights are honored. And he did it because he could. It's not about ejaculation. Janie Liggins told you that. Jesus Christ. Most of them don't have any idea if he ejaculated. Rosetta thought that he did. And I love how, on one hand, we should be commending Officer Holtzclaw because he doesn't tell the dispatch he's going into Rosetta's house.
He
But
did.
of course, that's
Sorry, he
what you
did,
would
though.
expect an officer to do. Damn it. It just out and out lies, huh?
Yeah, yeah. Sorry.
Why would you be commending him for not telling dispatch? I don't understand what he's trying to
I
say
think
there.
he's being sarcastic and condescending.
Oh.
Yeah, because it's hard because this entire thing is sarcasm and condescension, and
It
he's
is.
being an
Mhm.
absolute dickhole, and he's
He
pissing me off.
I can't believe
Yeah.
Adams is not on fire right now,
Ugh,
literally burning in a
Yeah.
flame.
yeah. Okay.
Okay. And I love how, on one hand, we should be commending Officer Holtzclaw because he doesn't tell the dispatch he's going into Rosetta's house. But of course, that's what you would expect an officer to do because you're not going to arrest her for being under the influence, which she is, and she's admitted to. You're not going to arrest her for being actively engaged in prostitution, which she was and she admitted to. Instead, what you're going to do, oh, oh, you're not going to arrest her for having crack and a crack pipe, which is what she said he found. Instead, you're going to put her in a car and go for a drive around the east side of Oklahoma City and talk about how good she is at giving head and what her specialty is.
Oh God.
And then when you get to the house, every good officer would know what you're going to do is if I'm not going to take her to jail, I better make for really good sure that she lives there. Because if I walk in and she doesn't live there, oh, well, then I'm taking her to jail because how dare you lie to me when you've already committed a bunch of other crimes in my presence? Okay, that's what he had to do. Had to do with Rosetta Great. He had to do that with Adair Gardner. She's a runaway. How in the world would I know? Well, maybe the name on the door that she's saying, or maybe the fact that she told you, quote unquote, this is where I live, and you drive there. But even then, you have a warrant. And at the time, I don't know you're a runaway, but I know you have a warrant for trespassing, and I know you're a juvenile. But boy, I'm going to take you home unless you lie to me about where you live. Because if you lie to me about where you live, then that changes the game plan. So that's why I need to log out of my system before I get to her house.
Oh, stop.
Tell the dispatch.
He didn't.
Oh,
He
it
didn't
is.
do that.
No, 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 no. He did
No.
not do that. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I don't mean to do this again. He did
Oh,
not
it's
do that.
okay.
He
Oh my
did not
God.
fucking do that. Oh my God. Can you guys tell I haven't read through all of this? Because I'm hearing stuff that is making me furious right now. God.
Uh,
Oh,
and
he
He's
no
did.
worse
and
than.
no objections.
Nope. He's worse
No,
than
no
Kratz.
objections.
He's worse than Kratz.
Yep, he is just lie
I have
after
to
lie
agree.
after lie, and
Wow.
completely condescending. And there's another word I'm trying to think of too that goes with that besides sarcasm and condescending. Um,
Arrogant.
Arrogant and immature. It's
Dis-
immature to
disingenuous.
behave this
Yes.
way.
Yeah.
And oh, I'm just like fucking furious right now that he said that. Oh, okay. To everybody who's unfamiliar with this case that's listening in and that's becoming more familiar with this case, what he just said is a flat out lie. Daniel did not log out of his system when he took Adara Gardner home. He
Nope.
did not do it. Fucking liar. Oh, God. Okay, sorry. Carry on, Susan.
So that's why I need to log out of my system before I get to your house. Tell the dispatch I'm already done with you on my CAD unit.
Mm.
The VisiNet interface, hit that button. Then I need to walk up and make sure that you really do live there because that's what a really good officer's going to do. That's where we make oh, except if you've stopped someone driving for DUI. Because then when Regina Copeland says, I live on 24th Street, all of a sudden it's not very important to go into the house and make sure that you really live or have relatives at that house that you say you do. Instead, either I'm going to follow you, as she said, as you drive drunk, or if you want to take that Mr. Adams was suggesting, again, there's no evidence of it, But his suggestion is that he left the car there. Didn't call dispatch to say that some car needs to get impounded and taken to the impound lot, because I'm not going to arrest her, but I'm certainly not going to leave her car there.
Okay, let me
There's
say
no
something
record
about,
of that
sorry,
either.
sorry,
That's
Susan. I'm going to
okay.
say something about this too. So he says there's no evidence of it, but his suggestion is that he left the car there, didn't call dispatch or whatever. There's also no evidence. If you can remember back to Regina Copeland, she says that he drove down that street, stopped in the middle of the street
Which
where she
he
was,
did not. We
which
know
he
that.
did not, and there is evidence of that, you motherfucker. Okay, go ahead.
There's no record of that either, but that would be reasonable and common sense would kick in. You want to ignore that. Instead, I'm just going to drive her home and let her out at the end of the block, because this time, what a reasonable police officer would do, just trust the drunk driver that she lives there. I'm hearing an echo.
You are?
Yeah. Huh. Absolutely. I'm going to let you, oh, it's gone. I'm going to let you out right here in this street. I'm not going to turn down there, and I'm not going to, okay? Does she remember him pulling down the street? Yeah. Does the AVL show that? No. But you know what it does show? Him at 0 speed for plenty of time to put your penis in her right there by the bus barn, just like she said. And ladies and gentlemen, it is not reasonable for him to take her home or let her drive home or be at 24th Street, period. Period. Because if he was going to let her go, he'd let her go. If he was going to take her to detox, he would have taken her to detox and impounded her car. There is an echo here.
It's either Jack or I then.
Can anybody else hear it?
I don't hear it.
Yeah, I don't hear it either, but I'll mute just in case it's me. I don't think I've got any.
I don't hear an echo. I don't hear an echo. Everything's good.
Oh,
Yeah, I don't hear it either.
odd. Okay. Where was I? Sorry.
Period. Line 6.
Because if he was going to let her go, he'd let her go. If he was going to take her to detox, he would have taken her to detox and impounded her car. If he was going to arrest her for DUI, he would have taken her to jail and impounded her car. There's no reason to go to 24th Street unless you're going to do exactly what she said. And he put his penis in my vagina and then he left. You saw the animation. It goes down and it goes over and it goes back up and he stops again and then he drives off. There's no report. And his activity card shows he was somewhere else.
There is a report.
But
he called. I don't know if it's been a while since we covered Regina Copeland, but I played it. I believe I played the audio where he called in the address at that corner where he dropped her off at on 24th and Miramar. So there is a.
Why is he saying his activity card shows he's somewhere else?
I don't even know what this lie is going to be.
Another lie.
Yeah, I don't know.
I'm 99% sure I remember that call too, Rhonda.
Yeah, I'm almost certain that I played that, and if I didn't, I will play it again for you. Anyway, yeah, let's see what he's going to say.
There's no report, and his activity card shows he was somewhere else. But she's evil because she didn't go to her aunt's funeral. Don't believe her. She missed a family funeral. Let's don't talk about my defendant. Let's talk about other things. Ladies and gentlemen, Terry Morris is a train wreck. But she told this officer. Mr. Adams said that Officer Gregory had to be lying to you because he talked about ABL. And there's no way he would have talked about Liberty Station Apartments if he hadn't looked at the AVL? Well, except for one of those exhibits that shows the CAD call when he was at Liberty Station Apartments, which
Oh,
is
God.
exactly what Detective Gregory said he knew when he went back to talk to Terry Morris again.
Ugh.
Okay, here's the deal. By design, these two detectives who did not have an agenda to bring a black eye on their police department did not look at the AVL until they found individuals who said, yes, something happened. Oh my God, such a lie. And
Can't handle.
ironically, every last one of them say it was him. Of the 19 zillion arrests and contacts, okay, you've just heard about contacts. You haven't heard about times when they're stopped and they come in contact with other officers, but every last one of them give a location where this defendant was.
Ugh.
I would suggest to you they are not sophisticated. They are not that good of guessers. But even with that notwithstanding, what these officers did is after they got their interviews, they looked at the AVL to see, are you telling us the truth or not?
Lie.
Because I would say, yeah, no kidding.
Sorry.
This is the whole crux of the damn case right here.
Yeah, it
I
is.
mean, the way that they set him up,
Yeah.
that he's denying.
Yeah.
Because I would suggest to you their agenda was to do what they told this defendant they wanted to do from the very first. And that is, we want to wrap this up and get you back to your girlfriend.
What?
And you get back on patrol really quick.
If you've watched that interrogation video, they never said that, but okay.
No, they did not. That's what they wanted to do. That was their agenda. But the evidence took them somewhere else. Oh, for fuck's sake. What evidence was that?
Yeah, none.
What evidence took them somewhere else? The AVL?
The AVL. Yep. That's it. The AVL. That is what this case is based
Yeah.
on. A lie about DNA and AVL.
Yep.
And
Yep.
Right.
AVL does not prove that somebody was sexually assaulted at the time. AVL shows that that's where he was, period. That's it.
Which he
That's it.
admitted to.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay.
Sarita Bowen. What Mr. Adams can come up with on that is she couldn't get her date right. She testified it was after her birthday. Well, it's in the police reports. And she said that from the start. And none of them know what day it happened. None of them. Okay? Ask you what day you guys ate at Liberty, at the big glass building across the street, Liberty Square, last week, and what you had. I bet you might get the date wrong. That's not the way they live. And who would expect them to remember? They want to put it out of their minds. Kayla Lyles. The most important thing about Kayla Lyles' testimony, according to Mr. Adams, was that she didn't tell her probation officer in August about this event happening. Well, guess what? Her probation officer is law enforcement. And who's going to believe her? Do you think the probation officer is going to just say, yeah? How many stories do you think a probation officer has heard from people on probation?
But to be, just so everybody knows, she did tell her probation officer in September after Daniel was already arrested and his face and the story was all over the news. So fuck you, Gigger. Bastard.
Yeah, she's looking at the Oklahoma City Police Department as a big ATM machine, just like the rest of them.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. That's important. That was just important to know.
And I would also say all of these women, you know, for many years had a lot of enactment, had a lot of incidents with police officers,
Hang on a second.
right?
Oh, absolutely.
And
Oh,
this
but-
is a chance
Oh,
for
sorry.
them to pay back. You know,
Right.
even if they're
Well-
not thinking about money, it's payback. Get, you know,
Yeah. Well, yeah,
I-
most
yeah.
of them hated cops.
Well, and I'll
Can I-
bet you that a lot of these officers. I'm sorry, Doc. Just briefly, a lot of these officers just try to help these people out, knowing that they've got problems, and he may give them a lot of shit about it, but to help take someone home and drop them off or whatever. I bet a lot of these officers do that. I'd bet money on it. Go ahead, Doc.
Yeah,
I was
but
gonna
I'm
say-
sure. But oh, sorry, Doc. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say that this is a classic situation of cutting your nose off to spite your face. All of these issues. I'm listening to the testimony as Susan is reading, and I'm just have to hold myself back because I'm just about to explode. But
Mm.
this rubbish situation that we see here is all very much self-induced. I like what Jack 61 said about the fact that the Oklahoma City was going to become their own personal ATM machine.
Yep.
And I believe that these women, despite all their faults, they were given carte blanche permission to go after Daniel and to go after Daniel in the most brutal manner. And remember that it was Rocky and Bullwinkle that laid the pavement down for these women to go after him. And it's really disingenuous when you have someone like Giga, who's now acting like a 5-year-old. And when you think about from what Susan has been reading, this is the type of a mentality of a 5-year-old bully in a schoolyard is.
It is.
And
Yeah.
it is remarkable that the way Giga has acted is very, very consistent. I do agree, he actually is worse than Ken Kratz. If that's saying something,
It is.
because the way he dressed down not only Mr. Adams by basically
Yep.
mocking him by saying, "Oh yeah, he's a really good lawyer," but however, the savagery, the absolute savagery of Mr. Giga against Daniel Holtzclaw, I've never heard anything like this. He's basically dressing him down in front of his family, in front of the women, in front of the jury and the judge. Giga has got no filter and no breaks. He is basically laying out the bullshit as much as he can, as quickly as he can, because he knows that the jury are in their minds, remember, they've got to juggle 13 women's testimonies. Their minds are like jello. So Giga knows this. So he's laying it on really, really thick. And you notice at every opportunity that Giga gets, he goes, "Would you trust this officer with
That's
your
right.
mother and your daughter?" So remember, he's portrayed him as a violent, not violent, as a sexual predator in the same vein as Gregory Allen, right? A sexual predator. And he's saying, "Do you trust this fine officer? How can you possibly trust this fine officer?" So he's basically destroying not only Adams, but also Daniel Holtzclaw in a most brutal manner. It really is shocking to hear, guys.
Right.
Yep.
I agree.
What were you going to say, Susan, before
It's
we start? Because I got
disgusting.
one more thing to add.
I forgot. Go ahead.
Well, I'm going to tell you, Judge, is it Henderson, Rhonda? Is that his name?
Yes.
Yeah, he should have
No.
told Giger's head up.
No, it's
Oh.
the former
Just
disgraced
former
Judge
disgraced Judge Henderson. Yes.
Former disgraced Judge Henderson. My bad.
Yes.
Former disgraced Judge Henderson should have tore Giger's head off when Giger made not even an inkling about Daniel not testifying. That's not allowed.
Yeah.
That's your constitutional right.
Oh,
and
yeah.
He should have tore his head off and threw it down the road.
Yeah.
To me, that's a
Instead, he got
huge.
a soft
Well,
little.
that is a
No.
constitutional violation.
Yeah.
That is a constitutional violation.
Absolutely.
And
Yep.
he's like, now, you don't be doing that.
Don't do it
What?
again.
What?
But
Don't strike that. That's not to be considered by the jury.
Right.
Can you imagine any of these judges? Can you imagine, Doc, guys, in the Murdoch trial, what would have happened?
Oh,
No
shit.
chance in hell. No chance. This is a judge who's got obviously no control over Giga. And basically what Giga is doing is he's trying to get away with as much as he can. So he's trying to push the boundary. And if the judge doesn't interject and says, hey, look, hold your reins. This is bullshit what you're doing. Giga will say, all right, I could do whatever I want. And is it true that Adams cannot put in an objection, or can he still put in an objection at this
He
stage?
can.
He
He can.
can. He can.
He's
He
been
had
totally ineffective. Totally
did-
Completely.
he did do an
Yeah.
objection about the not testifying part.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
it was a little slap on the wrist. There might be one more in here. I'm not sure. There might be one more
There
objection.
should have been many. Yeah.
Oh,
There
there should have been.
be.
I've counted up. I've counted up. There should have been at least 7 right now that I've counted.
Right.
Correct.
What do y'all want to bet that Giger knew what that judge was doing behind closed
Correct.
doors?
Oh,
Correct.
well,
So he had something on him.
there's a whole podcast way back when I believe I did about Giger and David Prater, the former DA.
Yeah.
It was called Big Pimpin'. There's a whole big article on it that they were pimping for Judge Henderson. They were getting the young attorneys in the DA's office, making sure that they were getting assigned the, Judge Henderson's courtroom, and it's gross. I've got chills. It's so gross. So yeah,
this case should be thrown out just because of that.
Yeah. Yep.
But
Because
also,
they have something over on the judge.
Yeah.
yes,
so
I was going to say Giga would have known, because
Yeah.
remember how many times do prosecuting attorneys go, oh, we've got a good judge, or, oh God, that judge is really, really bad. We have to be very, very
Right.
careful. There's no doubt
Right.
that Giga knew the behind-the-scenes machinations that were going on with the judge, because it's rather remarkable. I mean, look, if Daniel Holtzclaw ever gets out of prison, look how much defamation Giga has done to Daniel Holtzclaw. A phenomenal amount of defamation of character, and basically tearing him a new one. Giga needs to pay for this type of bullshit. He's not playing fair. Definitely not playing fair.
Yep. Agreed. Okay. Well, unfortunately, it's the worst is yet to come. So let's carry on, Susan.
Ugh.
If you can.
Ladies and gentlemen, I've talked a long time. It's 5:00. If you will allow me to, let me do what Mr. Adams said I needed to do. And I want to talk about one day in a little bit more detail. I hope in 15 minutes this case is yours. If you'll give me 15 minutes, I'll try to stop. On June 17th, 2014, Officer Holtzclaw had come back on duty after being off 6 days. And not to be too sarcastic, but maybe a little sarcastic, he had 6 days of medicated, unconscious intercourse with Carrie Hunt, because
What?
it happens regularly
Oh my
before they
God.
read their Bible verses, which would make her preacher daddy
Oh my
really
God.
proud, I'm sure. What the
Susan,
fuck?
I'm sorry, but I
Are you-
can't deal
are you
with
kidding?
it.
Oh my God. Then he says that was catty, but it's the evidence. Oh, for fuck's sake.
What relevance is it to anything at all?
Oh my God.
But
Oh,
you
this
see,
guy.
but this is the underlying theme here. He's actually got no brakes. He's got no moral compass, and the mere
None.
fact that he's now bringing in something that is private,
Oh my
between-
God.
and he's now putting it in front of the judge and the jury and the women as well. His so-called victims, they must be laughing their heads off, right? And it goes to show that Giga can basically not help himself. He realizes, when I read this, I honestly believe that Giga thought he was going to lose. I really do believe it.
It's the way he's
I believe
acting.
I believe he felt that he was in big, big trouble. So he's acting like a bully, and he has to get to the gutter level. He's
God.
no more than gutter trash. And the mere fact that he said 6 days of medicated unconscious intercourse with Kerry goes to
For
show
fuck's
how desperate.
And then brings her father into it.
Yep. How
Her
preacher
preacher
father.
daddy.
correct. How desperate this guy
Oh,
really is.
God.
Oh,
That's unreal. And he
I'm-
brings the Bible in too.
Yep.
yeah. And her preacher daddy,
Jesus.
wouldn't he be proud? That is just so
Oh
wrong.
my God.
So prejudicial. Oh,
That
so
was catty, but it's the
Jesus.
evidence. Evidence of what?
yeah.
What
Oh,
evidence?
It's not relevant at all. It's a
Oh
character
my
Period.
assassination.
God.
Adam
I don't
should
know
have
why.
got
I don't know
that.
why
Adam,
Kerry Hunt didn't try to sue for this, because this is just.
Oh
I'm
my
just
God.
sick. I'm sick at hearing that. I'm sick.
Oh,
Oh God.
Jesus.
Okay. Oh my God. Okay.
So
I promised this wasn't going to be a long podcast, so we'll try to keep
Jesus.
it narrow, but it's bad.
He's a dickhole.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
So for 6 days, he hasn't had his position of authority.
Mm.
You remember in jury selection when I told you about the hypothetical of my son and the peanut butter? And the direct evidence is I didn't do it. But the circumstantial is the actions are so much more powerful than what they say. Don't try to make sense of it, because what this defendant did doesn't make sense unless you realize there is an inadequacy issue. There is a power trip issue. There is, I can do this to you because I can. And there's a prevailing attitude that because what you have done and the choices you've made, I don't care about you and neither should anybody else. That's what his lawyer said. And he's being an advocate for his client. So after 6 days off, he goes back to work. Mr. Adams challenged me to show you where Officer Holtzclaw is lying in his interview with Detective Gregory and Detective Davis, aka Rocky and Blinkwinkle. I would suggest to you that he was lying whenever he said, quote unquote, I always turn off my AVL. Excuse me. I understand the way Mr. Adams presented that to you, but if you need to watch it, I would ask you to watch it. The context of that statement is, I always turn off my AVL when I'm leaving the station. Why did you log off? I always log off. That's the context. But when you look at the defendant's exhibit number 3, which, by the way, if all Mr. Adams wanted was to ask and he got it, it shows him not more often that it shows him not more often than not turning it off at the station, but turning it off at the turnpike close to his house on the south side of town. He doesn't always turn it off. He doesn't always turn it off.
Liar.
Yeah, that's a lie. Yeah.
And beside the point, which means I just lied to you.
Yes.
Why don't you just follow the chief's directive? Why don't you just leave it on? For I guess the logical conclusion is as long as you always ignore the policies, it's okay because this stuff doesn't matter. This stuff isn't designed to protect anybody. This stuff isn't designed for anything. Quote, I'm pretty sure she did not flash her breasts, end quote. I would suggest to you that that is a lie. A lie of omission is this. He waits, I would suggest to you, 30 to 45 minutes before he mentions that quote. Oh, yeah, she kept saying over and over again she was afraid I was going to shoot her, end quote. Okay. As a police officer, don't you think that might be something important to tell the detectives about the traffic stop when you were off the grid that the lady who is now accusing you of being sexually inappropriate with her kept saying over and over again, "Oh, by the way, I thought you were going to shoot me." And she's told these detectives, and he's sticking his penis in my mouth. All I can do is stare at that gun that's right there in my face. Okay, is he being honest? I defy you to find a place he's not being honest. What? He
Yeah,
said that wrong, didn't he?
he did.
Yeah, I think
Or it's
so.
quoted
Yeah.
wrong.
Which means he's telling the truth.
The whole everywhere.
Yeah. Well, then he says, quote, "I thought she was DUI," end quote. But at the same time, now follow me through on this one, okay?
God.
The same time, quote, "I kept her there for 15 minutes," close quote. Well, Mr. Adams said, "I went and smelled the cup and there wasn't any alcohol smell in the cup. Then why do I have her there for 15 minutes? Well, because I wanted to get her to confess to driving DUI. He did not.
He did not
But
say
now
that.
I know she's not DUI because I've smelled the cup and there's nothing there. So what do? So why are you keeping her for 15 minutes? Well, I wanted to get her to confess to a crime that I've just said I don't think I have probable cause to believe. Oh, and by the way, I saw pills in her purse. Well, you know that's a lie because Janie Liggins doesn't have any prescription medication. There's a lie. Oh my God.
This is
For
another
fuck's
reason that
sake.
Giger wanted to do all these at one time, because he could confuse the issues,
Yes.
totally confuse them, and completely baffle the jury.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Oh God, there's
Let me
another
give you
lie
another
coming
one.
up. So I'm just expect me to.
Oh God, it's about Carrie Hunt again. For
Yeah,
fuck's sake.
and I'm going to go off. So just fair warning.
Let me give you another one. Did not have intercourse with my girlfriend, Carrie Hunt. Excuse me. I did have intercourse with my girlfriend, Carrie Hunt. She did her best to try to say how, yeah, well, that wasn't right, but I'm at the gym. By God,
Okay.
step out of the gym to talk to the detective about whether or not my boyfriend's. What the hell? I'm okay, Rhonda, please.
Sorry.
explain.
Sorry. So what he said in his interrogation video is that he tried to have sex with his girlfriend. I tried to have
Yeah.
sex with my girlfriend. She didn't want
But
it.
she didn't
She
want
told
to.
me no.
Yeah.
She was tired. That was it. End of story. He did not say that he had intercourse with his girlfriend. Fucking Giger, you are the biggest liar that.
He did
okay.
not say that.
He did
I've
not
watched
say
that interview so many times. No.
Yeah.
But again, if I could just say, but again, Giga tried to get away with as much as he possibly could, right? And if the judge and if Daniel's defense team are ineffective, this is exactly how it plays out in court. So basically, he's got no brakes, he's got no filter, he's going to insult Daniel and his girlfriend as much as he possibly can. And what he's actually doing is embarrassing them, right?
Yes.
He's actually, and if you noticed one important point, what Giga said was this is about inadequacy. So in other words, he's sexually limp with his own girlfriend, but he's a sexual tyrannosaurus with all his victims. So notice what he's trying to get at. At home, he's hopeless, but on the street, that's where he can display his power. And if you notice what Giga said, he goes, "This is not about sex. It's about power." So obviously Daniel has no power in his own bedroom, in his own house, but he's got plenty of power on the street. So it's got nothing to do with sex. It's now got to do with power, which is incredible.
Yeah. Okay, we're almost through. Almost through.
By God, step out of the gym to talk to the detective about whether or not my boyfriend's. I don't know what's going on. I don't want to. I don't want to interrupt a workout. Here's the kicker. He says in that interview, quote, I cannot remember if I got an erection whenever I was coming in contact with Janie Liggins, end quote. Those are his words. They're on the video. I cannot remember if I got an erection when I came into contact with 50-something-year-old Janie Liggins. That's the officer that he did an impassioned plea to you. Scott Adams says, I hope is the one who responds to my family, the one who cannot remember if he pops an erection on a traffic stop.
Oh, God.
Jesus. That is the goal that we want our officers to be. Ladies and gentlemen, the reason he couldn't remember is because he gets erections on traffic stops. He gets erections when he stops people and puts them in the back of his car. He gets erections whenever he's driving them from a location where they have a right and a lawful place to be to an abandoned school at 1 a.m. and down to Dead Man's Curve where there's garbage and overgrown stuff, and you drive them across town up to 24th Street and the bus barn. He gets erections. And the fact that an Oklahoma City police officer would ever say, I can't remember if I got an erection whenever I'm running somebody on a DUI stop should be shocking and terrifying to us. I cannot remember if I got an erection. That, I suggest to you, is a lie. He did get an erection, and he stuck it in Janie Liggins' mouth.
Well,
but let's back up. Oh, Jesus.
It's all about erection.
Christ almighty.
But you see now Giga is actually attacking Daniel Holtzclaw's manhood per se, and his demeanor. So essentially, what he's trying to do is he knows
fucking ridiculous.
Yes, Giga knows he's got bugger all forensic evidence against Daniel. So he has to make up this incredible wild story that every time he's on duty, he gets aroused. He gets an arousement. So that's the way he can overcome the fact that there's bugger all forensic evidence against Daniel. So he's got to make it a general proposition that Daniel gets aroused every time he does a traffic stop. So hence, he is a sexual predator. He cannot help himself. But there's one problem here, guys, and that is it's all hearsay. There is no evidence at all. Was Giga there when Daniel was going out on these arrests or whatever? Did he actually see Daniel get an erection? So hence, why would the judge, why would Adams allow him to talk utter garbage and gutter trash and to dress down one of their own police officers with no evidence at all? This is how bad it's now got. It's actually quite shameful.
I bet the judge had a hard on. Listen to this.
Probably. Knowing disgraced former Judge Henderson.
Yeah.
Did I say that right?
Yep.
You did. Thank you. Okay. But let's back up on the 18th. It's been 6 days and it's about 6 o'clock. And he comes in contact with Adara Gardner.
It's not the 18th,
and most
Dick Hole, it was the 17th. So
17th, yep.
Anyway.
And the most important thing that Mr. Adams said about Adara Gardner is that she was mistaken about remembering if Kim Davis said something about AVL during her first interview.
That's right.
I would suggest to you that the most important thing. Sorry.
No, that's right. That is the most important thing.
Yeah.
Sure is.
He didn't lie there.
It sure is.
Go ahead.
I would suggest to you that the most important thing about Adara Gardner is the fact that DNA from the walls of her vagina was transferred in vaginal fluids onto the outside and the inside, not of his pockets, not of his cup, not where he sits, but of the exact location she says his penis came in contact.
And
There's the
Mr.
biggest
Mr.
lie right
Adams,
there. That
and
is
Mr.
what
Adams
got
should, yep,
Daniel convicted
convicted.
right there.
He
Yep.
should have raised a mortal hell right there.
It's a fucking lie.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Dr. Silkman?
I was going to wait just for the. I was just going to
Okay. Till we
for
get
the
done.
next
Gotcha.
and then I will unleash almighty hell.
Okay. Sounds perfect.
Okay.
All right. Let's do that. That'll be better. Okay.
And what Mr. Adams wants you to believe is he searched her purse. And so from her hand to her purse, from her purse to Officer Holtzclaw's hand, from Officer Holtzclaw's hand to Officer Holtzclaw's, I guess he does this after he searches somebody. I guess. I'm sorry, it's crude. I'm sorry. This case is crude. This case is what's reasonable?
Do you want me to comment now or wait to the next sentence?
Go ahead. Don't hold back.
Yeah. Well, the thing is this. This was the central tenet to his whole presentation in front of the judge, in front of the jury, in front of everybody. This was the central tenet. And I agree with Jack 61. This is what got Daniel convicted. So basically, he had to make this point, and he had to make it very, very strong and very, very poignant. And that is that the mere fact of that Daniel Holtzclaw had the DNA from Adara Gardner near his fly can only have meant that he had sexually assaulted Adara. And there's no doubt, I reckon what Giga did was he grabbed his crotch. That's exactly what he did in the courtroom. He said, I'm sorry, it's crude. I'm sorry, this is crude. He basically would have grabbed his crotch area to sort of say, is this what you expect a cop to do? So in effect, he had to play his trump card, and he prayed to God that neither the judge nor Adams would have jumped up out of their chair and say, Judge, Your Honor, this is all bullshit. This cannot be proven. It's hearsay. Now, remember our last podcast that we did, Rhonda and guys, where we went through this with a very fine-tooth comb. Now, on her defense, the actual DNA analyst, she never actually proved, Elaine Taylor never actually proved that vaginal cells were transferred in vaginal fluid from Adara to Daniel Holtzclaw's pants. And she actually said that.
And she said that.
Yeah.
She said that. She goes, the only thing I can say is that her DNA is on his pants. Now, Giga took that and ran with it to say, hey, I'm going to twist it the way I want to play it. So in effect, he told the biggest porcupine lie in the court. And you know what? He had to say this right at the end of the testimony for the most maximum impact. And that's exactly what he did, because he knew he had nothing about Janie Liggins. He could not prove oral sodomy, and we showed it, right? When Elaine Taylor did all the analysis, forensic analysis, there was not one DNA allele belonging to Daniel that was present in Janie Liggins' mouth or around her mouth. There's no proof of any form of sexual misconduct, oral sodomy, anything. So now he had to play his trump card. Notice what the motherfucker Giga did. I'm sorry for using harsh language. He goes, it's been 6 days, which meant that poor Daniel, poor limp, incompetent Daniel at home with his girlfriend had to wait for 6 days. So now who does he come across? A 17-year-old girl, and he rapes her. So notice what he did. He wanted maximum impact, maximum shock value. So the jury are going, oh my God, yeah, that's got to be correct. What do some of the jurors say? We don't know about the DNA. The DNA is boring. So I put it to you, Giga, he's got no scruples, no moral compass. He knows that his own laboratory technician, Elaine Taylor, never ever said that vaginal cells were transferred in vaginal fluid from Adara to Daniel Holtzclaw. So the whole premise that Daniel Holtzclaw is in prison is based on a lie. And I'll tell you why that's powerful. Because if the jury believed that Daniel had raped Adara, then that meant a priori that he had committed all the other offenses to the other women. So hence, that's why they laid it like a pancake, guilty, 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 all based on a false premise that their own analyst, Elaine Taylor, said, hey, I never proved this. I never used an alternative light source. I never used any staining. I never put any cells under the microscope. I only tested one small part of his pants. I never tested anywhere else. And to make it worse, guys, I actually hid the fact that Daniel's own alleles were present on the items, right? Remember 17Q1, Q2, Q3,
Yeah.
Q4? She hid it, right?
Yeah.
So the jury are listening to this saying, oh my God, Daniel had committed this rape, all based on a false premise. And that's why I cannot understand why Adams was so ineffective, and also the judge, and allowing Giga to basically have carte blanche in the courtroom, and it was devastating for Daniel.
The fact that there was no objection right there by Adams is absolutely crazy.
It's unforgivable. It's absolutely unforgivable.
And the problem we have here is that the jury is instructed that opening and closing arguments are not evidence, and you're not to
right.
consider, right? But
Correct.
they did consider this because we heard what that juror had to say.
Yes.
And how do you put something like this in their minds and they don't consider it? I mean,
You can't unring that
that's
bell.
a problem. That you can't. It's a problem in our system.
Well, that's correct. But in a way, Adams should have had either a PowerPoint slide or said, Your Honor, because of these following points, that statement made by Giga is in actual fact false. And the fact
Not
that
in evidence. Yeah.
No,
that's
that's
correct.
not an evidence.
And the mere factor that Adams failed to do that probably led to a greater part of Daniel being convicted. I'm sorry. I know that's harsh.
Agree.
I know that's
agree.
harsh. But the mere factor that Adams sat on his hands instead of jumping up like a crackerjack and saying, Your Honor, that's not what the OCPD analyst Elaine Taylor said in her testimony. But there you go, right there.
Right. Yep, agreed. Okay, let's see if we can finish. Are you okay to finish it? You're doing great, Susan, by the way.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm good.
Okay, here we go.
Okay, what's reasonable? And then he says, quote, I'm beating it up. Have you ever fucked a cop before? End quote. Ugh, Jesus. Nobody's going to remember Adara Gardner's name. Lawyers haven't even learned how to pronounce it. Quote, I'll be back, end quote. And he comes back, unbelievably, arrogantly, with his badge and his car and his gun. He comes back. Sex happens about 9:30ish. Ms. McConnell was mistaken in her first closing. She said that telephone call was at 10:40. It was at 11:43. There's a lot of things to remember. So now it's 11:43, and it's been a couple hours since he had sex with Adara Gardner, since he did what he could to her. And just like he said, he comes back. If you think he's calling to check on her welfare, I've lost this case already. Quote unquote. Hey, is Adara there? On his personal cell phone. Seems to me like it'd make a whole lot more sense if you feel compelled a few minutes before midnight to knock on somebody's door and talk to them. You just walk up there and talk to them. Ms. Gates, are you home? I brought your daughter home earlier and I wanted to make sure she was okay. I want to make sure you two are okay. That's reasonable. But to cruise by and stop and go on down and then make that phone call and ask for a Dara? Oh, but she shuts it down. Mom's home. So now, what's the greatest officer on the force supposed to do? Well, let's go trolling back over the east side. It takes them about 20 minutes, maybe 30, to find Kayla Lyles. Kayla Lyles was committing the unthinkable crime of having a fight with her boyfriend. Should she have been walking around at 1 in the morning? Probably not. 12:30? She was cooling off. You heard her. I don't have drugs on me. I had not done drugs that night. I was not drunk. In fact, I was on the phone with Mr. Anderson. And you know that she's telling the truth because you have the phone records. At the Relax Inn, he's blowing her phone up and she's firing back. He's calling her during those times. You've got those phone records. That's the kind of stuff that these two detectives spent their time doing. That's what they were looking for. And that's what they should have been looking for. Not stuff that didn't happen, stuff that did.
Time out.
And
Time out. Okay, I have a problem with this. I want to know, and I'm going to wait because I really want to know what people in the chat think. Who do you think Giger is talking about when he says that he's, you've got the phone records, and at the Relax Inn, he's blowing up her phone and she's firing back. He's calling her during those times. Who do you think he's talking about when he's talking about those phone calls?
Well, he mentioned Kayla Lyles, but he had just been
Kayla and her
Kayla
boyfriend?
Lyles, but okay. Well,
and her boyfriend?
well, that's who it is James Anderson. But the way that Giger put that across, he makes it sound like, ever so slightly, in my opinion, that it was Daniel that was firing off phone calls to her.
No. He says that Kayla said, in fact, I was on the phone with Mr. Anderson.
Right.
That's at
I
the beginning of
understand.
all this.
But I feel like the way he just kind of went in, and you know she's telling the truth because you have the phone records. Okay, that's the boyfriend. And then he kind of slides in there at the Relax Inn. He's blowing her phone up. And she's firing back. That one little sentence, to me, if the jury is already mind blown and wasted and, trying to stay awake and already had all the shit twisted to them by Giger, I would think that there's at least one or two that are thinking that it's Holtzclaw that was calling her and firing back at her. And
absolutely, that's exactly how it comes across to me.
That's how it came across to me.
I don't get that at all. I'm sorry. I think it's all between Anderson and Kayla.
Well, it is. I just feel like Giger leaves it kind of hanging in the air about who it is. But that's just my opinion of that. So I was just curious.
There is the potential. I mean, I agree with Susan, but there is the potential for misunderstanding, because basically what he's doing is he's putting different narratives together.
Yes.
So he'll go from one victim, change the situation, make another statement, and then go back to the witness that he was talking about, right? The victim that he was talking about. So
he did that intentionally, Doc. He did that intentionally.
Yeah, he's throwing spaghetti at the wall and hoping that something will stick, right? So he's very, very clever the way he's manipulating information.
Yeah.
So he's making it a big deal that the detectives got her phone records or Anderson's phone records, and they proved that she was making those calls, of what she said. Well, so what?
Yeah, who cares?
Exactly. You're right.
That's irrelevant.
Jesus, that's what these two detectives spent their time doing. That's important shit there.
And that's what they should be looking for.
Yeah.
Between two people that are having a fucking fight, who cares?
Yeah, exactly. Okay, sorry. I wanted to see how others perceive that little sentence.
Yeah.
Okay, line 12.
And so he puts her in the car. And you saw the map from 16th and Lottie all the way over to the exact same school he took Sherry Ellis to. 0 speeds are there. And he sticks it in her vagina and he sticks it in her mouth. He logs off before he's done with the call.
Lie.
Doesn't tell dispatch where he's taking her as he should. Doesn't call it in. Because who's going to believe Kayla Lyles? Who's going to remember Kayla Lyles? Just like the others. Take it because I can.
He did not log off of his computer.
Not the lie.
Go ahead, sorry.
And then when the shift is over, now we're about 1:30 in the morning, so he logs off. No reasonable reason to go back to Adara's house. No reasonable reason to go to that school. And then he wants you to believe, Mr. Adams wants you to believe that what is reasonable is that at 2 a.m. on the northeast side of Oklahoma City, in a car you cannot see through, the black back windows have, log off your system and initiate a traffic stop. Don't flip that little switch and say, hey, dispatch, this is 2 Charlie 45. I logged out, but I'm going out on one. I got a traffic stop, possible drunk driver. If somebody's on duty, will you send them to this location too? Nothing like that. That would be reasonable because we don't care about this stuff. That stuff's just policies. And so he walks out by himself and initiates a traffic stop with a drunk driver who has pills that doesn't. What the fuck's that mean?
He's saying that he walks up to initiate a traffic stop with a drunk driver who's not drunk, who has pills that she doesn't have, which is not true.
Oh, I see.
She had pills.
Okay. And for 15 minutes, he can't explain to these 2 detectives, even though they ask him over and over and over, what are you doing? If you're not in line for CIU, if you're not running warrants, what are you doing? Mr. Adams wants to talk about how there's no DNA in the back of the car. But then he turns around and says, well, we've admitted that she was in the back of the car. So let's don't talk about what my client did. Let's look at other stuff.
God.
Jesus Christ. So what? There's no handprints on the car like she said there would be.
Right.
What's more reasonable? The way that stop went down? Assume he pulled up beside, seeing that it's a woman. And you know what? He got to the point to where he didn't think it through. He screwed up. He got too bold. He got too out of control. And ladies and gentlemen, these officers didn't go get his underwear that he told them that he washed. He didn't tell them that.
He didn't.
They
He
didn't
just
do
said
a
they were in the
search warrant.
washer.
Right. They didn't do a search warrant for his house because nothing happened at his house.
Oh, God.
There's lots of things. Don't lose sight of what the evidence is. There's
Can I-
lots of things.
There's nothing.
Can I just make a comment here?
Yes.
You bet, Doc. Hey, I'll be back in a minute.
Okay.
This is the very reason why this case is probably one of the worst I've ever read or heard, because here what you have is an attorney, Giga, basically trying to cover up the incompetences by the fellow officers for not doing the appropriate crime scene detective work. Now, there is absolutely no doubt that if Daniel Holtzclaw was this sexual dynamo going out in the streets, right, at night, assaulting all these women, the number one thing that they should have got was his underwear, right? They should have tested his underwear, because are you trying to tell me that they didn't understand the literature, that someone like Elaine Taylor didn't understand the literature, that even if you wash your underwear, there's always the possibility of DNA still being present on your underwear? And, you know, they're saying that Daniel Holtzclaw had attacked all these women. Well, then his underwear, right, where his penis touched his underwear, there would have been forensic evidence on his underwear, right? No question about that. Even if he had washed his underwear, there would have still been DNA present in his underwear. This is really disingenuous where Giga stands up in a court of law and says, they didn't search his house. Well, why didn't they search his house? How do you know that he didn't take a memento, so like a memento from his
Right.
victims? How do you know that he didn't have underwear that still had forensic evidence? Why didn't they check his other items of clothing? Right. So
Yeah,
now he's
exactly.
he's saying, don't worry about all that. Nothing happened in his house, so we didn't go there. You got to be kidding, right? Right? In any criminal investigation, you go to the person's house to see if you can uncover incriminating forensic evidence. They didn't do that. And that's a shocking admission to say in a court of law in front of a judge.
It's incompetence. It's incompetence at its highest, Doc.
Yep, sure is.
Yep.
Nothing happened at his house. Jesus.
Yeah, that's the stupidest, most ridiculous thing.
It is.
And the worst, because this is rebuttal, no, the state or the defense cannot answer to all this bullshit.
Right.
Which,
you know what? And here, let's just think of, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Susan, but I got to get this out before I forget it. Let's just take the Kohlberger case. There's no accusation that anything happened at his apartment in Washington State or at his parents' house in Pennsylvania, but they still went to the fucking houses and gathered evidence.
Yep. And found evidence.
They sure did.
That's just the most ridiculous line. One of the most. The list is so long, but okay.
What it does, guys, is it gives you an incomplete picture. So anything that could have been exculpatory, they didn't investigate, right? Just like the not allowing the retesting of the pants by, say, doing an MVAC to get a much more robust profile to prove that Daniel's DNA was indeed on his clothes, right? And that's a good hypothesis, right? You would expect to find your own DNA on your own clothing. And the mere fact of that when Elaine Taylor tried to hide his alleles, I think she had an agenda. The state had an agenda, right? To sort of say,
absolutely.
well,
yes.
his DNA is
touch DNA. Yeah.
That's right. His DNA is not there, but guess what? Adira's is. So hence this proves sexual contact, a rape taking place. The mere fact that his alleles were coming up on his zipper area actually weakened their case severely. What they should have gone with is, hey, yeah, his DNA is there. What do you expect? It is his clothing. No,
right.
They were disingenuous. They were going, no. His DNA is not there to strengthen our case. So instead of going with, hey, it's touch DNA, no. It was a rape because his DNA is not present. But Elaine Taylor proved that the majority of Daniel Holtzclaw's alleles, including a Y chromosome, were present in the zipper area. You see, and that's why Adams needed to be much more vigorous in his debate against Giga. Giga had free reign and was trying to come up with excuses for the incompetence of his own officers.
Yeah.
And another reason, can you imagine the hypothetical, guys? Can you imagine the hypothetical where they had 13 different trials? There is no way that Giga would have been able to pull what he pulled in this trial.
No.
It's a high degree of complexity, right? It's a and that's why this was a high stakes case, because imagine if Daniel Holtzclaw was found not guilty. Oklahoma City would have burnt. It would have burnt. There would have been rioting in the streets.
That's right.
So in effect,
It would have been.
Giga knew this. Giga had to put his own balls on the line. Sorry for being so crude, but he had to go all out. He had to win this case under all circumstances. if you parallel what happened to Stephen and Brendan, same thing. They had to go all out and prove their guilt. If they had walked away from the courtroom and been found not guilty, all hell would have broken loose. So
Oh, the
Giga
floodgates would have
was
opened.
under pressure. He was under pressure to lie his ass off, and he did it repeatedly.
Well, and we can't forget about the jury. Not only what Giger did, but the fear factor for the jury, because they could hear those protesters outside while they were in court.
Yeah.
It was very similar to like a kangaroo court. You can imagine the Salem trials all those years ago,
That's right.
whereby the poor people on trial, they had no chance. Daniel Holtzclaw had no chance because you had a very, very complex case in which you had 13 potential victims. Now, isn't it interesting? Because just Rhonda, you covered this so well in all your podcasts, how some of the women said, he did this to me, he did that to me, and the jury found them not credible. Daniel was found not guilty on those particular charges. So it begs the question, what tipped the balance? And the answer is Adaira Gardner and her DNA on his pants. That's
right.
what tipped the scales of justice towards the victims and not towards Daniel. That very point there, which he lied.
And the AVL lies. Both of those things together. Can you hear me? Hello?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yes, we can hear
okay.
you.
I'm sorry. Okay. All right. 4 minutes past 5. It's been a long day. It's been a long trial. State of Oklahoma set out to prove to you beyond any doubt that is reasonable that this happened. Nowhere in those instructions are you going to find something that says it's your job to look for a reason to find him not guilty. No, 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 no. It's not, it's your job to look at the evidence that he said was proper for you to consider. That's what you've got. Not all this bullshit I'm telling you.
Right.
And and in fairness to Mr. Adams, he's impassioned and he is right about our system and he's right about the way things work in his courtroom. He's dead wrong about his client's innocence. And the state of Oklahoma has proven to you beyond any doubt that is reasonable that this officer violated an oath that he took to protect this community and protect the laws of the state of Oklahoma and the United States of America. And he exercised authority on those who society doesn't care about. He's wrong. He's wrong. Officers do care about those people. And assistant district attorneys care about these people. And I pray the evidence has convinced you to care about these people, to put this man in prison for the rest of his life and take him off the streets of our society. Convince these ladies that someone does care about them. Thank you for your attention. Pass the jury.
Okay, that's it. That's
God.
That's the closing arguments.
My blood pressure, I tell you, I'm going to have to step away forever.
No, don't go.
Both these cases are like, oh my God.
I know. TJ is putting amazing like facts in the chat. He says one of the BLM women leaders said, "We won't riot on our side of town and they won't let us riot on the other side, so we protest." That was actually Grace Franklin who said that, who was the organizer of Artists for Justice, BLM organization there in Oklahoma City. She organized that branch, or whatever you want to call it, for this case specifically. And it's just so, yeah, thank you, TJ. You've been putting lots of good facts in the chat for folks. I appreciate it. I'm telling you, I can't remember being so angry, and I know this case almost inside and out, and I can't remember just about anything that's made me so angry as that closing argument rebuttal.
Oh my God.
Full of
Oh,
lies and innuendo and
oh my
factual
God.
evidence.
And the sarcasm and the condensation and
Yep.
the childish immaturity from Galen Giger is unbelievable. Unbelievable.
It actually was very unethical for him to do so. And if I could just have just 1 minute to get my summary about all of this.
Okay.
It goes to show how desperate people are and can be. Kratz sort of did it in his closing argument as well, in his closing statements as well. But this took it to another level. So it's very, very interesting the way Galen Giger went about this. He attacked Adams. On the one hand, he was saying, oh, he's a great lawyer. And on the other hand, he gave him a backhander to his head, saying, oh, yeah, but he's wrong about this and he's wrong about that. He completely emasculated Daniel Holtzclaw, took him apart. At home, he was impotent. He had no power, no control over his girlfriend, and he took out his so-called sexual frustration out on the streets. And what is really interesting here, guys, is the way he tried to disarm the defense. And by that, I mean, he went through every one of the victims and he says, basically, they're all garbage people. They're all garbage people. They've got problems. They're lawyers. They're drug addicts. They get involved in fighting. They're involved in prostitution. All the things, all the elements of a person's personality that brings up in you and me and anybody else a red flag. So Giga had to ask a question: would I want any of these victims to be part of a jury pool and then make a decision on my life? And if Giga said no, then he's a fucking hypocrite, right? On the one hand, he's now I understand sexual abuse plays no part in our society and is the most terrible thing just after murder and child molestation. But so is falsely accusing someone of doing rape and other sexual misgivings.
God, yes.
Yeah.
Just
Amen, Doc.
if you point a finger at a police officer, and notice Daniel had no sympathy at all from his own fellow officers. Rocky and Bullwinkle were out to crucify him, put him on a stake and burn him to a crisp, to use him as a sacrificial lamb to sort of say, hey, police officers, take your hands off these women that are in society. And these women, unfortunately, saw the opportunity to go, okay, we can nail a police officer to the cross and we have carte blanche. We're not going to get in trouble. Notice what Giga said. Hey, how can I possibly win a case against a lady who's taking PCP? Are you fucking kidding me? Are you kidding?
God.
So now he's saying prostitution's fine. Taking drugs is fine. Having a sex offender is fine. Doing all these misgivings in society at 2 a.m. in the morning, it's fine. No problems. All is forgiven. As long as you testify against Daniel Holtzclaw. That's exactly what happened in the courtroom. So therefore, my closing statement is this. No one is now safe. No police officer, male or female, is now safe because you won't get your own fellow officers having your back. And you can get the most desperate, despot people in society who've got a multitude of problems, If they all stick together and say, yep, he did it, he did this, despite no forensic DNA evidence, and you know that Giga lied regarding the rape of Adira Gardner about the DNA, then no one is safe. That's my final point. It truly is quite shocking.
I agree, Doc.
Agreed, Doc. And thank you so
Scary
much.
shit.
It is. It's terrifying because it can happen to anyone, anywhere. And I know we said the same thing about, Stephen and Brendan and all of those, actually, everyone who's wrongfully convicted. And I'm not trying to say that charges in one wrongful conviction are worse than charges in any other wrongful conviction. But kind of like Dr. Silkman was saying, when you accuse a cop especially of the heinous types of crimes that Daniel's convicted of, you are effectively destroying his life forever. Even when evidence is produced and shows that he is 100% innocent of all of that, people are not going to remember or aren't going to pay any attention to that. They're going to remember that a cop raped and sexually assaulted helpless Black women who are, on the fringes of society in northeast Oklahoma, and that's what they're going to remember. And I'm not saying that if a murderer is released from prison, I'm not saying that he or she is not followed or ridiculed or harassed, or I'm not saying that at all. What I'm saying is that it's worse for somebody who's convicted of these types of sexual crimes wrongfully, because like Dr. Silkman said, these are the worst types of crimes, right below committing those sorts of assaults against children. And I'm just I'm kind of almost, believe it or not, speechless, because it's incited so much anger in me. Not that it hasn't always been there, but after reading that closing argument, it has really fired me up. And you know what I'm going to do? What we're going to do is show you guys in the coming weeks, months, and year at least, proof that everything Galen Giger said to you in that, or said in that closing rebuttal, was a lie. We're going to prove that to you. It's going to be one day at a time, one case at a time, through several parts of a case at a time, but we're going to prove it to you. And
well, Rhonda,
yeah.
Rhonda, we have actually disproven one of the most important, potent elements of the case, and that was the DNA forensic evidence.
Right.
Yep.
Because we actually have proven that it's complete rubbish. And you know what makes it even worse, guys? Elaine Taylor even admitted such in a court of law, in front of the judge, in front of the jury.
Yeah.
This is the big problem with DNA evidence, right? Remember what I said? DNA doesn't tell a story, people do. So Galen Giger, he wrote his own story and his own narrative regarding the DNA forensic evidence. And it goes to show that while DNA evidence is very powerful, sometimes there's too much overreach. There's reaching a conclusion that you can't support, right? And Elaine Taylor, to her credit, although she did many things wrong, she kept on saying, the only thing I can say is that her DNA is on his pants. I have no idea how it got there.
Yeah.
And Galen Giger knew, right, guys, in his heart, he knew that no one was going to believe the witnesses, because all the witnesses had multiple issues, multiple trouble with law enforcement, right? So hence he had to use the biggest trump card that he could, right? Daniel Holtzclaw was away for 6 days. He was sexually fueled. He was sexually charged. He, correct me if I'm wrong, just Rhonda, but didn't he sexually assault 3 women that day? 3.
In less than 24 hours. Yeah, in about 12 hours.
Yeah, that's someone who makes Gregory Allen look like an amateur,
Yeah.
someone that could not control his sexual urges, which is completely ridiculous because his other fellow officers would have noted something. They would have said, well, Daniel's making all these inappropriate comments. Did anyone ever actually say that about Daniel? He's
Nope.
acting in a bizarre manner. He's making all this sexual innuendo. Did anybody say that?
Nope. Nope. Never.
including
Nobody.
his girlfriend.
Yes.
Including his girlfriend. Yes.
Nobody. So it goes to show, Giga keeps on talking about reality. That's not how the real world. Giga is not working in the real world. He had to build this
No.
cocoon of bullshit, and he hoped that nobody could see through the lies. And it's actually quite scary because this is a very complex case, and it's a very, very nasty case because it transcends so many barriers. It transcends a power distribution, the police officer having all the power, these poor women having no power. Daniel Holtzclaw is a white police officer. All the women are African American. So it transcends all these lines and barriers, right? And
Right.
my final comment is this. It's an important one. Unfortunately, Daniel Holtzclaw had set himself up in many cases because he didn't do a lot of the protocols that were necessary to do. Because Giga said, oh, why didn't he do this? Why didn't he do that? I believe that Daniel, in the goodness of his heart, was trying to give these women a second chance.
So do I.
Yes.
Instead of hauling their ass
Mhm.
to the bloody police station every 5 minutes, he was hoping to intervene and make a change, make a difference in their lives, right?
Ride their ass.
What
Ride
did
their
they
ass and make
do?
them see.
Yes. What did they
And let them know somebody does care.
Yes.
does care, unlike what Giga was trying to say. And what did those women do?
Exactly.
Rocky and Bullwinkle went up to them and said, I believe you've been sexually assaulted by a police officer. And then they must be going, oh my God, all my Christmases have come at once.
Yeah.
So hence the women.
There's a rumor
Yes.
or a tip.
Yeah.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
received a tip.
The women that he was trying to help all turned on him like vipers. And he must have been thinking, oh my God, I tried to help you. And look what you've done. You pointed a finger at me like Judas with his silver bits of silver. Boom. Daniel he's finished. In the eyes of the community, he's finished. Terrible.
Yeah.
What is the reality, Doc? You think, okay, 3 women in 5 hours, and they find none of those 3 women's DNA on Daniel anywhere.
No, it's, in my opinion, it's
What are the
complete,
chances he wouldn't
complete-
have any? Yeah.
it's complete garbage, right? Like I said, and all the males will tell you, your underwear, a male's underwear is like a crime scene, no matter what you do, right? You've got penile secretions, you've got, you name it, you've got skin, you've got hair. It's like a crime scene. They didn't even check
And
his
they're all
underwear.
saying that he's whipping it out through his fly of his pants.
Correct,
Yeah.
correct,
Right?
correct.
Well, there's
And
going to be
he's
something on his fly.
all
from,
over the place.
You know. Yeah.
Look, sex is a messy business. Sex is a messy business. And the mere fact that Giga can only put forward the example of Adara Gardner, that to me is a red flag right there. Because he knew that the jury are thinking, wait a minute, are we going to trust all these women? There's no forensic evidence. Look what Ligon said. Oral sodomy? Wait a minute. Elaine Taylor did all the appropriate testing. There's no proof of that. The only trump card that he had left was Adara Gardner, and he used it to his advantage. Boom.
Yeah. And he lied about it completely.
Yes, he did. Complete, 100% complete. Just like Ken Kratz when he said, right, guys. Oh, yeah, Stephen Avery bled in the back door, in the back area of Teresa's Toyota RAV4, and it proved to be incorrect, and his own lab technician had to correct him in court. How embarrassing, because it was A23, which didn't belong to Stephen. So these little errors become big errors. And remember, the jury had to sit through this garbage for nearly 6 weeks. So Giga knew, I need a trump card. I need a take-home message. Boom. That was it. Adira Gardner. That's what did him in.
Yeah. And
I
that's what
misspoke
jurors
when I
want.
said nothing from all three on that day. That's where Adira's
Yeah.
came in, but yeah.
But if you can take into consideration that just before he pulled over, like 20 minutes before he pulled over Janie Liggins, he allegedly sexually, vaginally raped Kayla Lyles. And there is no DNA profile of Kayla Lyles anywhere on his clothing, on Janie Liggins, nothing. A Kayla Lyles profile shows up nowhere. We know that because Dr. Silkman presented to us the evidence.
Correct. So that's why Elaine Taylor got DNA standards from all the potential victims. And hence she was able to do a direct comparison and say, okay, what allelic profiles are here? Now, I know that there are mixed DNA profiles, but hey, he's a police officer. He's touching people. He's frisking people. He's getting skin cells on his hands. He's transferring DNA from from the people that he's touching to himself. It's normal. And any guy will tell you, right, Jack 61, right, guys?
Yep.
You're always touching your belt region, your groin region, your zip region. Males do it intuitively. You check your zip.
Yeah.
Is my zip up? Is my zip down? So you're putting your fingers on your zip. For a male, that's normal behavior. And fucking Giga, I reckon, grabbed his crotch like Michael Jackson did, in those video clips, to show how rude, how disgusting, how vulgar Daniel Holtzclaw is. Whereas all he did was check his zip. Done. Yeah. Every male does it.
Poor Daniel. Poor Daniel.
Something else.
Except Daniel Holtzclaw.
Something else that Giger said that was really disingenuous to me. He was talking about how unsophisticated these women are, and they've been in trouble, and all this other stuff. I don't remember which one it was. I'm sure she's not the only one. But one of them's got 5 aliases, 6 or 7 social security numbers, and all this other stuff. That's not an unsophisticated person. Right. It's not.
No, it's not.
It's Foreign Mathis, a.k.a. Lynn Gibson. Yeah.
There you go. That's not an unsophisticated person.
No. You're right, Jack 61. These are career criminals. Remember, they know how to live on the street. And what better way to prevent future police harassment than what happened to poor Daniel? So poor Daniel was the sacrificial lamb. So all these women are saying, now they've had a hard life. Don't get me wrong. Please, I show no disrespect. But these women had the chance of a lifetime to point a finger at a police officer and get him off the streets forever. That now sent a message throughout the OCPD police force that, hey, you mess around with us, this is your fate. So now everyone is terrified because they know they're being watched. And notice, no one went up to Daniel Holtzclaw and whispered in his ear, oh, by the way, there's rumors going around that you're doing such and such. Oh, no. They dropped the hammer on him immediately. And Rocky and Bullwinkle went to work behind the scenes, not because the victims went to them. They went searching for victims. And these women are saying, okay, so it's free reign now.
Yeah. That asshole that bothers me all the time. Fuck yeah. I'll get him.
He did it. Correct. Yeah. So, in other words, what Daniel should have done, he should have been tough-nosed, hard-edged. You've committed a crime. You're going to prison. You're going to the courts. No. What did he do? He gave them multiple chances.
Yeah.
Exactly. And they turned around and they bit him.
Yep, exactly
That's
right.
right.
Even if he didn't rape nobody or nothing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, thank God he was found not guilty on her charges because I mean all of the accusations are ludicrous in my opinion, but hers is particularly ludicrous. Just,
Yeah.
Oh God, it's just,
I'll be interested to see, Rhonda, when you start going back through this stuff to see if there's actually any audio that the judge didn't allow to get to the defense.
yeah. Kay's in the chat right now. She might actually know. Kay, are you still in the chat? I don't know if she is or not, but anyway, I'll see if I can find out from Kay, but I don't know that anything was, I just don't
She's
know, but I'll find out.
she's there, but I'm not sure that she's there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. She might have, she
There
might
she
just,
is.
is she there? Oh, there she is.
Yep.
Oh, so the question is, in Giger's closing argument, he said, that, God, I'm so fucking flustered. I can't
That
even remember.
the
Oh,
judge didn't allow some of the audio recordings.
audio recordings.
Correct.
You did the reason he's telling the jury, the reason you didn't hear all of the audio recordings from the police, from Rocky and
Interviews.
interviews, is because the judge didn't allow all of them in as evidence. Do you know if that's true? Because I haven't read that in any trial transcript, but I don't know.
I can't imagine why any of them would be excluded.
Yeah, there's no reason. The only reason, if
Not
any
legally.
of them were played, the only reason, never mind. It's just infuriating. If any of them were played, it's because those were the only ones available, not
They said
She
because.
says
only
two
only
allowed
two
in.
allowed in. What?
Okay.
Why?
All right. That's interesting. Well, still, just so everybody is aware, in the chats, just so you're aware, very few of those interviews were recorded. So it's not like all of
Blinkwinkle.
them.
Yeah, she was not a techie.
She
No.
She
wasn't
didn't know how
techno.
to.
He's not a techie.
Yeah.
She wasn't very techno, so she couldn't. Of course, but and here, let me just say something about that. There were several times she made claims throughout the trial. She's made claims that she didn't have a recorder on her because she wasn't planning. She didn't go to the house expecting to do an interview. She was just going to leave a card to have the person call her back, and then they would set up an interview. And so she made several comments like that. Well, my theory is, or my idea is, if it's not already a thing, if you are a sex crimes detective, that should be a part of your go bag. That should be a part of your
Well, hell yeah.
tools that you take to work with you every single day. A recorder.
Any detective.
Yes.
Any detective.
Exactly. Yeah, we'll have to look that up, Sheree. I want to know too, which ones weren't allowed in and why.
She said Carla Raines was one of the ones allowed.
That was allowed in? That surprises me.
Yeah.
That surprises me.
She's the one that said no 7 times.
Yes.
I think they forgot to put that part in.
Yeah, they probably forgot those parts. Yeah. I wonder, I can't imagine that Terry Morris's would have been put in. Probably maybe Florine Mathis's might have been put in. That's the one where they went to jail and interviewed her. Well, one of them, because they also saw Rosetta Great in jail, but they went to see Florine Mathis in jail. And as soon as they walked in, Kim Davis claims that they asked, "Do you know why we're here?" or whatever her line was. And she said that Sarita Florine or one of the two, dropped her head immediately and started crying and said that she knew why they were there. That's just and so I'm sure, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if that was one that was let in, but we'll have to find out for sure which ones were let in. The point is that there weren't very many to let in, and why weren't the ones that they did get, why wasn't any of that allowed in? I'm so curious about that now. So we'll have to find out and let you know on another show sometime.
Well, I'm
Oh,
really
wow.
interested in whatever we can get to find out why the specific interviews were not let into trial.
What's that, Jack? Say that again, please.
I'd be really interested to find out, as we go through this, why other audio interviews or whatever weren't allowed into trial.
Yeah. Yep, me too.
I just don't get it.
Yeah. But you know what? Somehow he managed to get a conviction anyway, because he was able to twist and lie and confuse the jury.
Oh, yeah.
Manipulate.
No doubt. Yeah.
So, okay. Well, we're at a little over 2 hours and 21 minutes. So
is that all?
I know, right? I feel really good. It's below 3.
You think we're done?
Well, I mean, unless anybody else has any more comments or questions or things they want to bring up, anybody in any of the chats have any questions or comments, I am absolutely, here for it. And, we'll answer whatever we can.
Well, I don't have anything. I'm sorry, Doc.
Sorry, Jax, this one. The comment I was going to make. The comment I was going to make is, imagine if it was the flip side and that Giga was actually part of the defense team. I'll tell you right now, Giga would have destroyed every one of those witnesses, every one of them.
Mhm.
And when he gave his closing rebuttal remark, he actually did a shopping list of every one of the women. And he said, yep, they've done this, they've done that, they've done this, they've done that. Now, isn't it very interesting how Giga said, forgive them, forget it. It's not important. What is important is this. But I'll tell you right now, had he been on the flip side, had he been on the defense team, he would have torn a new one in every one of those victims, potential victims. He would have said, how can you possibly trust anything that they say, right?
Yeah.
So when Adams used that to say, hey, come on, look at what they've done. They're on heavy drugs. They're on narcotics. They're on this. And did you notice what Giga said? Giga said, oh, they've probably got brain damage. Now, how in the hell can he possibly say in front of a judge and a jury that some of their brains are fried, but they remembered this? They remembered this.
Yes.
And you think to yourself, wait a minute, talk about being very, very selective. Is their brain fried? Yes or no? If the brain is fried, how in the hell can you possibly trust anything they say? When one of the victims goes up to Rocky and Bullwinkle and says, yeah, he was a black officer. He had blonde hair. He had this. The complete opposite to what Daniel looked like. You're starting to look for patterns. Are these women telling the truth, or do they want to put someone in prison for life? The mere fact that Giga gave every one of those witnesses a way out, to me, is extremely disturbing.
Yeah, agreed.
Very.
It is. Yep, it's every bit of it is just, when you try to make one thing the most egregious thing, then you learn something else and you go, oh no, wait a minute, this is the most egregious thing. Every fucking bit of it is egregious and ludicrous and insane. And just some are just to, more of a degree of that than others, I guess. But it's just infuriating. And I'm telling you what, I'm here to prove to the naysayers, the guilters, as we call them. I'm here to prove to you, no matter how long it takes me, that Daniel's innocent. And by God, we're gonna get the evidence to prove it to you and show it to you, present it to you, so that you can see it for yourself. And then, just like with the guilters in Stephen and Brendan's case, if you want to still, after we manage to figure out how to get the evidence to prove his innocence to you, and you still want to say he's guilty, then that's your problem, and you get to live with that. And you get to live with that negativity in your life or your thoughts or your whatever. But the truth is going to get out there. So
They did exactly to Daniel what the state of Wisconsin did to Stephen and Brennan, except it's a million times worse. It's 13 times worse or 12 times worse, right? They put
yeah,
a target on his head. And on top of that, there was rioting going on all over the country because of the racial issues. And they
right.
were doing it there in Oklahoma City. And that was with intent. There's no
Well,
doubt in my mind.
Kim and Rocky claimed that there wasn't really any racial tension going on at the time in
Oh, my
Oklahoma City.
God.
It was
They
pretty
don't
calm.
have
Yeah,
that.
right.
They don't have that in Oklahoma, just like
Yeah,
they don't have touch
Yeah.
DNA. You know?
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly, Sheree. No racial
And
tension and no transfer DNA in Oklahoma City.
all those accusers were getting all of that backing from the Black community as
Right.
well.
Yeah. Oh,
It,
that's what I was going to. Go ahead, Dr. Silkman.
I was going to say it is rather ironic, but this was a lynching of a white police officer because
It was.
the atmosphere would have been very, very inflammatory. It would have been a very, very uncomfortable. This is like a lynching, like a kangaroo court. So basically, poor Daniel had nowhere to go, nowhere to negotiate. And when Giga is allowed to say anything he wants without any forms of breaks or any forms of censorship, you know that things are going to go downhill rapidly. Yeah,
Yes.
it must have been a shocking atmosphere in that court, and clearly the judge, he had no control of that court.
No. Well, and he was just happy to let the DA or the ADA, to let Giger say whatever he wanted. Giger was part of providing him with, how do I want to say it? Sexual partners. So yeah, it was, I don't even remember what we were talking about now, but it must have been something about this because it sparked me to mention somewhere way back in my videos, probably in my first several months, or I would think of doing these lives. We did like a 3-part or a 4-part series on Terry Morris. The very first one, I would like to redo it because the video that I made was so bad, but I've got a lot more experience now, so I'd be much better at it. But I took it from Brian Bates. So you don't even have to watch what I made. Go to Brian Bates. There's a video of it in his YouTube videos of the first interrogation that Rocky Gregory did with Terry Morris when he took her back to the department so that she could sign the refusal to prosecute form. That's was the reason that he took her there. She refused to prosecute, didn't want to be involved, wanted to let this all go. And he lied to her and said, well, the only way that I can let it go is if you come down to the station or the department and sign this refusal to prosecute. And there is a refusal to prosecute form, and it is in evidence. But during that time, and I think that's probably about a 30-minute long video, he badgers and torments and tortures Terry Morris to the point where it made me sick, and it broke my heart for her. She was clearly jacked up on crack, cocaine, whatever she was on, or she needed it. And you can see that as evidenced by her just constant twitching and writhing and scratching and itching. And then she's crying and she's begging him to leave her alone. Just let me sign this form so I can get out of here. And it's horrible the way Rocky Gregory manipulates her in that.
Is she the one that said later that the first time she saw Daniel was in court?
No, that's Sherry Ellis.
Okay. I get them confused. Yeah.
Yeah, that one's Sherry Ellis. No, Terry Morris is the one where she said she was she was assaulting her ex-boyfriend in the front of his truck or car. He
Oh,
pulls over
yeah.
at the gas station, yeah. And so
Yeah.
she's the one that said that she had been raped by a cop 3 or 4 days earlier, which would have made it May 20th or May 21st.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah. And then Rocky managed to get her to lie and say that, oh no, it happened on May 8th over in this other whole different location. Because that was the
Right.
only time there was any evidence of Daniel having stopped her was May 8th.
And that was after they managed to get her in jail for about a week.
Yeah.
So I don't suppose they looked up who pulled her over downtown 2 or 3 days prior.
They did, but there was nobody at least in the Oklahoma City police departments. That's, that doesn't mean that it doesn't mean that it wasn't a cop that was off duty with his AVL turned off, as many of them did.
Right.
So, yeah, they were brutal in some of their quests to get some of these women to make an accusation. So, who was the one lady who was interviewed and said that at the end, that was Shardarian Hill. Was that good enough? Was that good evidence? And then Rocky says, you tell me. Well, even if he didn't rape nobody, he shouldn't be contacting nobody on Facebook or whatever she says after that. Even if he didn't rape nobody, she says, she's the one that said that he sexually assaulted her in the hospital when she was in the hospital.
Yeah, she was high as fuck on PCP.
Right. Exactly. Almost deadly.
That's one of the most deadliest drugs you can take, PCP.
Yeah. Very deadly almost. Yeah.
If I could just make the quick comment.
Please.
I really believe that the makeup of the jury would have been very, very important in this case. And that is, if some of the jury were showing sympathy to the victims and they themselves felt victimized themselves by Giga. Because if you notice what Giga did, he would have been looking at the jury and he kept on saying, he doesn't care. He doesn't care about them. He doesn't care about you. And I'm wondering whether that actually hit a note with some of the jury members that they too were in vulnerable position whereby they could have been either harassed by a police officer in the past or some bad experience with a police officer in the past. And this was their way to sort of like, not get even, that's the wrong word, but basically to square the ledger that they themselves felt potentially threatened. Because what did Giga say, guys? Would you want this fine officer helping your mother, helping your sister, helping your daughter? That is a veiled threat directly to the jury. What do you think, guys?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That was powerful.
Yeah, well, I mean, so many things that he said were so supercharged, so his whole rebuttal, I mean, honestly, his entire rebuttal was highly charged and highly inflammatory and highly insulting, on Daniel, on Carrie Hunt, on Carrie Hunt's father. I'm just mind blown that he said the things that he did about Carrie.
Oh my God.
Me.
That was the worst paragraph in the whole damn closing.
It really was. It was bad. So, and to, I think back to other trials that I've watched, and they were really rough on Murdaugh. The prosecutors were really tough on him, and they should have been. But the way Giger was with Daniel was just every single thing out of his mouth was just condescending and sarcastic and insulting. And I can't imagine being on a jury where I would find that I would take great offense to that as a juror. Like, whoa, wait a minute,
Yeah.
where's due process, and where's
Yeah.
some sort of presumed innocence,
It was very amateurish. Like I
Yes.
said,
Amateurish, yes.
it was
I
the
agree.
mentality of a 5-year-old school bully hitting below the belt.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really was.
That's Giga. That's Giga.
Yeah. He sounded like an immature schoolboy. And just the language that he used, and when he made the gesture at grabbing, I agree, Dr. Silkman, grabbing his crotch, in front of the jury. Come on.
Fucking crass asshole.
Yeah. Just uncalled for. Completely uncalled for. And yeah, I don't know. I just don't know how he was able to get away with it. Well, I do know, because I know, about the judge. So, and Kim Davis, she lives for that shit. Let's be honest. So,
Oh, no doubt.
she's just all over that.
Oh my God.
Grocer.
I'm sure she went home every night and masturbated thinking about her investigation.
She said she liked good rape. Didn't she say that in one of?
She couldn't
she
stop
likes
talking about Dan.
she likes investigating a good rape. Yep.
She couldn't stop talking about Daniel's junk every time she had an opportunity. She talked about his junk.
Yeah.
Yeah, she did.
Yeah.
Yep.
Ugh.
And also, and this all goes back to the comments that we're
Despicable.
making about Giger, but when he would say, instead of saying, and he put his penis in her vagina, he stuck it in her vagina, he stuck it in her
Yeah.
mouth. Come on, man.
Yeah.
Where's some
No kidding.
professionalism? That was unnecessary.
Well,
It's around Davis too much.
Yeah.
The reason why he did that was that he was using his penis as a weapon. That's basically
Yeah.
the analogy he's trying to do.
Mhm.
Because
You're right, Doc.
one of the victims actually said, well, while he put his penis in my mouth, I was looking at his gun. You notice the analogy?
Shady.
Penis,
Yeah.
gun,
Yep.
weapon,
Yep.
power. Yep. That's exactly what Giga was
Mhm.
doing. Yep.
Yeah, that's a good point. Neverly, that was Rocky who said that. When they were asking Daniel in the interrogation about the size of his penis for some ungodly reason. And he said something. He didn't say anything, if I'm not mistaken, or maybe he said, I don't know what he said, but then Rocky in the background, plain old 14-incher, huh? And you had a chance to say, and I'm just like, oh my God, that whole interrogation is just a whole other shit show. So anyway, yeah, you're right.
I was thinking
gross.
the other day, Rhonda, about Janie Liggins and her motivation to do what she did.
Mhm.
And just the fact that she was, for some reason, scared to death. She thought Daniel was going to shoot her. She said that several times. Daniel said she said that.
Mhm.
Maybe it had to do with Ferguson, what was going on all around this country,
Right.
But she truly thought that she was going to die that night at the hands of a police officer. I think that was behind her motivation, possibly, to get back at him, to take the upper hand.
Yeah, could be.
Yeah.
Yeah, could very well be. Yeah, you're right. I mean, it's, and the people, there are so many people who say, that what was her motivation? She had no motivation to lie and blah, blah, blah. And, well, that's not true. And I've also seen and read comments where people have said she had no record and blah. That's not true. Janie Liggins has a pretty lengthy history of being pulled over by cops in Oklahoma City. And every time she was pulled over, she didn't have a driver's license for 30 or close to 40 years, if I'm not mistaken.
Right.
Every
Right.
single time she was pulled over, not one cop ever. I don't think she got cited, but if she did, it was very far and few. She was never cited for not having a driver's license or not having insurance or not having her car registered ever.
That's really weird. That's
And
weird to me.
from what I understand, and I don't know if TJ's still here, but maybe if he is, maybe he can answer to this as well. But from what I understand, especially in that part of Oklahoma City, that is something that is so
Common.
common and unimportant. They have other things that they are trying to
Mm.
patrol for and work towards and do that are
Worry
more
about.
serious than worrying about no SDL and insurance and stuff like that. And so, but she was 30 years. And even if she did
Yeah.
get tickets during some of those times, some of those stops, she still never went out and got a driver's license and insurance and registered the vehicle. Never. So,
Right.
and that's something that I read that comment all the time. Well, why didn't he write her a ticket? Something's wrong. Something's weird about that. He didn't even write her a ticket for not having a license and insurance. You'd go to jail for that. I've been pulled over years and years ago when I was a lot younger. I got pulled over several times. Life was a little rough, and I would have no insurance on my vehicle for whatever reason, or I'd be, a few months later, late paying my, getting my car registered. And every time I got pulled over for something like that, the worst thing that I got was threatened to have my vehicle impounded and a fix-it ticket. I was never arrested and taken to jail for those. Are just not the kinds of things that you go to jail for. You get cited for them, you pay big fines, but you don't go to jail. So when these people are like, oh, that's just really weird that he wouldn't, and that somebody that was making that comment, I guess must have been a cop wherever he was from, and man, if I did that in my department, I would have been fired. I said, for not writing a ticket for somebody with no license and insurance? Come on. Yeah, because that's the kind of stuff you should be going to jail for. I'm like, damn. I said, damn, where do you live, son?
Jail. Yeah, that's a ticket. That's not jail.
Yeah. So, people are just, people pick and choose what they want to believe and what they, what seems weird to them, or, just all the things. And,
well, like Scott Adams said, they didn't look at, all of Daniel's, 35 other
right.
stops to see what was normal for him.
Yeah. Well, TJ says that's what happens now. They impound your car, arrest you, and suspend your driver's license. If you don't have insurance and you don't have a license, or your car's not insured, they take you to jail for that. Well, then Janie Liggins better stay her fucking ass off the damn road then. She's going to be in trouble.
Well, that must be for insurance, because he says they suspend your driver's license. So that means you have a driver's license.
Yeah. And that too, but I've never, not where I come from anyway. I shouldn't say not where I come from, but no insurance is a ticket. No DL is no DL, car impounded, DL suspended, jail. Wow.
Well, you have to go to court on that ticket, but
but to go to jail, but I can get a speeding ticket and go to jail 2 weeks later. I mean, go to court 2 weeks later. I don't have to go to jail. Well, I mean, depending, of course, but anyway, this and that, tomato, thick and thin, whatever.
In that, I can understand in that rough area of the city, them not worrying about things like that. They had a lot of crime, drugs, gangs, a lot more serious stuff to deal with, and stuff like that.
Exactly. All right, panel. So Dr. Silkman, any final comments that you'd like to make before we shut it down?
It's just a horrible case. There's no two ways about it. The Stephen Avery, Brendan Dassey cases are bad. This is on another level. It had very much the elements of a witch hunt. Basically, they were setting Daniel up. They were going to get him. They were going to arrest him. They're going to put him in prison. They used him as a sacrificial lamb. It's a horrible, disgusting case. I was very shocked by Giga, his manner, his disposition, the fact that he lied his ass off is very, very troubling. I am very concerned with the American judicial system, whereby someone can get away with something like this. Adams should have been a bit more attentive to what was being said by Giga. He should have objected on a lot of different occasions. And also the judge. The judge had, I believe, very poor control. It is a case, unfortunately, where there are no winners. If Daniel comes out, if he's released, no one's going to believe him. They're now going to blame, white cop, etc., etc. So it's going to have a racial type of angle. This case is a political hot potato. Very, very difficult to deal with. Yeah.
Right.
But thank you so much for inviting me. I learned a lot.
Thank you so much for all of your wisdom and comments. We've also learned a lot. So we thank you very much.
No, thank
Jack,
you.
how about you? Do you have any final comments?
You mean me and my big mouth? Are you kidding?
Hit it. Go for it.
Just a couple of things and then a couple of plugs for foul play, and then I'll shut up. Number one, Giger is just a fucking asshole. And you're going to have to pardon my French, but he is a fucking asshole for what he did. And in all the conversation, there's some parallels with this, as there was recently last summer with Johnny Depp. Look at what happened there. The slinging of his name that Amber did, that he beat her and beat her up and blah, blah, blah. And it was just lies, but it destroyed his career. All these companies ran from him. And they get a trial, and she looked like an idiot. It was just lies, and they proved it. They attacked the credibility and all of it. The same parallels happened here. The cops went after Daniel because of, I think he was the sacrificial lamb. I think Doc I think all of you said it. He was a sacrificial lamb for the city of Oklahoma, so their city wouldn't get burnt to the ground. That's what I believe. They put the target on him, and they got him. Did the same thing to Brennan and Stephen. They had to do it to get the monkey off their back, and I tell you, I learned a lot too, and I hope we can learn more. Whatever transcripts that we can get and go through and find out even more about what actually happened in this case. I think it'd be very revealing. That's all I got to say about that. Oh, by the way, Giger's a fucking asshole. Anyway.
In case you didn't say it before, right?
Yeah. In case you guys didn't pick up on what I was laying down a minute ago. Anyway, Saturday, 5 Central. Join us for part 3 with Doc and Neverly and the crew presenting Canine Noses from John Ferak's book, The Wrecking Crew. Oh my God. Doc has passed on even more slides to me.
That's what I heard.
Oh my God. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy what they did.
So we're gonna be down, we're gonna be up to like 5 or 6 parts, in other words.
I'm not gonna reveal anything. I'm gonna say probably at least 4. I don't think we can finish it Saturday.
No, I don't think so. But put it this way, I need to get together with John Ferak. If he ever rewrites his book, this is definitely a chapter that he can greatly expand upon. I think it will strengthen. It will definitely strengthen his position. I was completely shocked what I found.
Yep.
Yeah.
And even considering everything that Doc has pulled together, there's still one report that we can't get our hands on.
Yeah.
30, I think maybe 32-page report or something like that. We still can't get. So please join us, 5 Central. And then Sunday, open mic. Everybody's invited, of course. We're going to dive back into more dispatch calls from November 6th, 7th, maybe we might get into the 7th, I don't know, probably. From Manitowoc and maybe a few from Calumet. So that's always sparks some good conversation. So there's the plug. And thanks so much for inviting me. Yeah,
Oh,
thanks
thank you for being here with us. Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Cherie, I know you've been pretty chatty tonight, but I'm sure you've got a few extra things you'd like to add.
Well, just it's the first time I've heard the whole thing, and I was like you and Susan, my blood pressure's sky high.
Yeah,
because it's just awful.
yeah, it really
There's
was.
no words that are strong enough.
Yeah, it's like you got to start. You got to try to make up new words to
Yeah.
express your anger and yeah, I get it. All right. Thank you all for being on the panel, for all of the reading that you've done and the helping, and Doc for all the research that you've done and the presentations you've given to us, to everybody in the chats, listening and taking in, new information in what for many of you is a whole new case, and sticking with us and waiting to hear, that I'm not just got a hair up, a bee in my bonnet and got a wrongful conviction case I want to work on. It's truly a devastating case that we're working on. So I appreciate you for coming along. I do want to say that right now we have not purchased any new transcripts to go forward. I haven't seen Liam for the last couple of weeks, but Liam Wakefield has been giving Kay and Cherie and I some opinions and advice over in our Discord about crowdsourcing and how to get others who are interested in learning more via court transcripts to try to help us out. And so he gave us some great advice, some great points to work on, and all of the things that he suggested sound great. Kay has worked really hard so far. She's done her part. I have not done mine, but we're going to start getting some things together over in Discord for people who do want to contribute in some way to helping get more transcripts so that we can start getting this ball going from the very beginning of the trial. And as I will try to work on that the rest of this week, how to set that up and how to get it going and where to even start with something like that. And we'll announce it in future lives that we do, and I'll once I get it figured out and set up over in it'll all be over in Discord in a new room that I'll make for it. Again, it's not I don't want to be begging people, to help pay. It's just going to be a choice thing. If people are interested and want to take part in, throwing a couple dollars towards a few transcript pages, we're going to break it down. Kay's already done that, broken down the pages by accuser, how many pages are in their trial or in their testimony, their case, I guess is the best way to say it, that we would need and how much it would cost. And then that way, if somebody wanted to donate $10 or whatever, the breakdown will be in Discord in a new room that I'll make, and you can just look at it and see if you're able to help. If you are, great. If not, that's completely fine too. We'll get it. We'll get there somehow, and we'll keep bringing you more of these horrendous lies from the state of Oklahoma, because there's not enough. By the way, I put some information in Daniel's Truth Discord in Richard Glossop's room and over in the news articles room in Foul Play. Kay found a tweet today on Twitter from the Oklahoma Attorney General that he is filing a motion to vacate Richard Glossop's case.
Conviction.
Conviction. Yes, thank you. it's not going to be let's vacate the conviction and send him home because we believe he's innocent, because they don't believe he's innocent. They're not exonerating him, but they're either want to vacate and let him go, or I believe get a new trial. Oh, that's cool. That's
they're remanding it back to the civil court, or to the circuit court.
to the circuit
They're
court.
remanding his case. Yeah.
Yeah. And Becca just said that Laura Nyrider tweeted it too. So that's awesome. That is really, really good to hear. So
they've set aside his conviction because of a sneaky DA that withheld exculpatory evidence.
right. Thank you, Susan. I appreciate that.
And that
I'm so
was that what's his name there? Bob, or who was
I don't know who was the
Dentner.
DA on that.
Dentner. Oh, the DA, Bob. That was Bob Macy
Gossip.
originally. Yeah.
No. You
No.
said that wrong. You said that wrong. It's bloodthirsty Bob Macy.
Yeah.
Bloodthirsty Bob.
Yeah.
Yeah. That case, his death penalty case goes all the way back to Macy and Gilchrist. So he's been in prison for close to 30 years, I believe, if not more.
I remember a red-faced Prater, but that was probably when they were trying to, overturn it later on.
Yeah.
Appeals.
So check those out in Daniel's Truth, or on Twitter, or in Foul Play in the news articles room. I put a couple things there. So that's great news, because he was scheduled to be executed next month. So again, for the fourth
do you think the circuit court will choose to retry, or the DA? I guess it is.
I don't
know. It goes back to the circuit court. So
yeah,
I would think that, I don't know what that means exactly. But yeah, they're going to have to either decide to retry him or not.
Right.
And
if they're not going to retry him, then let him go, I think, is what I understood.
The thing that caused this to be over to his conviction to be overturned or set aside or whatever is because the guy that was convicted for actually killing his boss, killing Glossop's boss,
Barry Van Treese.
Justin Sneed.
Well, yeah, Justin Sneed killed him. Barry Van Treese was the boss. Sorry, go ahead.
Okay,
Susan.
yeah. So Sneed was evidently on lithium and had been seen by a psychiatrist, and that was not disclosed.
Mm-hmm.
When he went in fact, he lied on the stand that he had not seen a psychiatrist, and they thought they gave him lithium because he had a cold or the flu or something.
Lithium for a cold or the flu? Oh my God!
Isn't that what your doctor prescribes?
Jesus Christ, no!
Said, they gave him some over-the-counter medicine for his cold, and they gave him some lithium, but he wasn't sure why they gave him lithium, and he had never talked to a psychiatrist, and that was all lies. So that's the reason that it has been overturned.
Got it.
Yeah. So they don't really have his testimony, and he was really the case, right? Against Richard.
Yeah.
So I can't see how they're gonna retry, but they still state that they believe he's guilty. So
yeah, just like I can't remember the guy's last name, but in trial 4, we might let him go, but not because we think he's innocent. We still say he's guilty. Yeah.
That's Sean Ellis.
Sean Ellis. Yes. Yeah, we'd sure like to get his attorney, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, I hope that this was informative to everyone and that it sparked some anger in everyone to start looking more into the case and to spreading the word about this case to others. You know, and a great way to start that is by subscribing to my channel, liking the videos, commenting. I would love to see more comments, and you know, sharing it with others, tweeting it out with others, and or to others, so that we can, you know, it's one thing if it's a handful of us that are trying to tweet things out and share things, but the more people that we can get to do that on Twitter or whatever platforms you use, the more awareness this case is going to get, for the better. I believe that. So I don't know what I'm going to be doing next week, but there will be something that we will talk about. And for right this moment, it's just going to be a surprise because I don't know. And that's okay.
Hey, Rhonda,
Yes.
can I just reiterate
Yes.
what Jack said? Galen Gigger is a fucking asshole.
Yes, you can.
That's probably the worst thing I've ever read in all this reading I've
Horrible.
done.
It's a horrible closing.
Probably
I've
the
never
worst
read
thing
one.
I've read.
Yeah.
I've read
I
many
agree.
closing arguments of various cases. It is the worst one I've ever read, ever.
Yeah,
I agree.
I'm with you, Jack. He's a fucking asshole.
Yeah.
It's very, very reminiscent of the Spanish Inquisition. That's what it was. It
Wow.
was as bad as it gets, because remember what Giga introduced. He even introduced religion. You know, he went to areas which normally should be no-go zones, but he did. He was unashamedly ready to crush skulls, and he transcended a lot of barriers, and it was actually very reminiscent of gutter trash. So I agree. It was a shameful performance by Giga.
Yes,
Yeah.
I agree. We all agree, and I will. I'm not taking my doctor's already trying to watch my blood pressure, so I am not taking a reading tonight like I would normally. I'm
I
not
think I'll
taking a
skip that.
reading of blood pressure until tomorrow morning because it would be bad. I might end up on whatever they give people for blood pressure meds these days if I do. So I'm not going to tell him. I'm not taking it tonight. I'm just going to let it go because I'm still pretty fired up. So, all right. You guys have all been a great panel. People in the chat with your comments and your questions have been phenomenal. I appreciate you so much. And I think for now, we're going to just go ahead and say peace out until next time.
Good night, John
See you,
Boy.
everyone.